So yeah, we got a big day today ahead of ourselves, obviously. Free press was there. I'll talk about that. I'll do a recap of the rallies, right? Like a brief recap. Had to do that. But you know, there's a lot of situation monitoring that'll be going on. Thank Allah for Taco Tuesday. Abdul Al Sayed rallies were major W's. Those things are always so good, man. I love seeing you guys out in the real world, you know? Abdul rallies were major W's. In parentheses, recap. And then what's Trita Parsi's at on Twitter? Let me find that real quick. Can we watch the majority clip before we get serious? Sure. Hold on. T Parsi. Okay. At T Parsi. On to talk ceasefire. Ceasefire. And where we go from here. Dems respond to Iran. W, kneecap on. What's kneecaps at? Let's find that one too. Kneecap seal. Okay. Sorry. Kneecap on to talk Cuba and new album. Epstein's Fury Day 39 and more. Get in now. Yes, we're going to talk about Lebanon, obviously. Okay. Dude, this is so funny. People blast off meme. I got hella blast off memes. Don't worry. I got 2 in the docket here. Okay. All right. Yes, answer the allegation. Stop defiling our grandmothers, our dead grandmothers. I don't know what that means, but this is a quite unfortunate fit that they put me in, which I think they did deliberately. This has shoulder pads. Like, this isn't. I've worn this before on stream. The guy who made this sent it to me because he was like, "It's the comfiest hoodie I've ever worn." And the designer who made this hoodie actually sent it to me. It makes my head obviously look smaller. I suspect it's on purpose. There was a whole interview portion here too, but I did this ID Mag photo shoot a while back. Yeah, I know. I was in ID Mag. We'll obviously talk about that too. It's not that. I thought that was edited. No, it's literally shoulder pads. It's a padded hoodie. It's a shoulder padded hoodie. It's ironic because I also did like an interview about fashion on the ID Mag thing, and I talk about how like I'm too fat and too big to wear this kind of stuff. Like stuff that's supposed to work on like handsome slender man, a waifish twink, and I don't have that frame, but I still do it regardless because I'm a chud ass loser. What are you gonna do? It's like those Chinese influencers try to fake their fridge body with the shoulder pads. Lamau, yeah. Ethan Klein shared it on his IG, and their IG page is brigaded by scumbags. Yeah, dude, I don't know what it is, man. I don't know why people. I will never understand why when someone fucking hates me, they don't just like hate me this much. Okay. They don't just like give up and move on to other shit. They go crazy for the rest of their lives. Like it dramatically alters their trajectory, where every waking moment is another opportunity to just be like, oh, I can get one off on them. Because you respond. No, even when I don't respond, I mean, I didn't respond for fucking months, right? Like you can't say that about most of my fucking haters, right? It's just confirmation bias. No, but there are plenty of people that I never talk about, which I'm not going to bring up right now, but actually the overwhelming majority of my psychosexual relationship, that like one-sided psychosexual relationship that like a lot of my stalker ass haters have, are never reciprocated with a response. Like there's nothing there at all, and they still do it, and I just don't understand it. I don't know why. I will never understand it. like there's plenty of people I hate, right? There's plenty of people I hate. I mean, hate is a strong word, but there are some I would use it for, right? I hate the morally repugnant worldview of many Republicans, many reactionaries, right? And I don't, I don't think about them at all. Like there's never a moment where I'm thinking about Ben Shapiro, right? I'm never, in my mind, I'm never like, oh God, I hate Ben Shapiro. In my mind, I hate Randy Fine. I don't talk about Randy Fine all that much. I don't think about Randy Fine all that much, right? There are a lot of like repulsive, racist, white nationalists, white supremacists, neo-Nazi, ultra-Zionists. There's varying degrees of hatred that I have for all of these horrible ideals, horrible ideologies, horrible people that represent those ideologies. But like, I don't know. I feel like there's no way to live life. Right? It's no way to live life. It's not a decent way to live life at all. Azan, the Aura farmer. Your ass needs a haircut. Look at the back of your head. I know. I gotta get a haircut. Wow. I'd much rather have them hate you if they didn't hate immigrants instead of. Yeah, but that's not how that works. The reason why they hate me is because they hate immigrants, and I'm constantly defending immigrants. The reason why they hate me is because they hate, black people, brown people, Jewish people. I defend all of these people, so they hate me as a vector. It's a multifaceted approach. It's not a wonder that, not a surprise that there are so many different ideologies out there. Where people will just like find one thing to fucking despise and hold on to it and cherish it and let it manifest, let it fester in their souls. All right, let's do, this is recap time.
There's been a lot of controversy about this event, and I'm just curious, from YouTube, what is your reaction to that controversy? Do you think it's overblown coming from Washington, or what have you been hearing from the people that you're speaking to here?
The President of the United States just tweeted about wanting to do a genocide in Iran. And the fact that this is the controversy to me says everything we need to know about what DC focuses on.
Oh, Jake Paul did blackface. Oh, there. Nice. For us.
This is so right.
You're better.
I need you on the
That was actually.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Nice to see you, bro. I know, man. No, I gotta.
Yeah, bro, when I said like the Jake Paul did blackface nice, like Fox News is gonna clip that and be like, Hassan Piker loves blackface. Now, let's get to our blackface expert who has done blackface, who has defended Jake Paul, and also a panelist comprised of Jake Paul himself in blackface, where we will now talk about how racist Hassan is for saying Jake Paul did blackface nice. Like, that's literally what's happening. It just doesn't make any fucking sense, where I'm like, well, you're Fox News. Like, what do you mean? Right? Faz Shaker was on Fox News this morning. And they were like, well, Hassan Piker is a woman hater. And it's like, but you're Fox News. And then they were like explaining to Faiz that it's really bad. I'm a Republican panelist at the Republican News Network defending the Republican regime. And let me tell you exactly how bad it is to identify your movement with a guy like this. And it's like, I don't think you're giving us good advice. Like, I'm in enemy territory. Why would I take your fucking advice, dude? It's so dumb.
Subscribe now. Somebody in the comments asked if I was Cash Patel.
Oh my God. I'd love to take a question. Actually, what do you mean by your state?
I feel like
If you can't define the question, I'm not going to answer it.
Belong in the U.S. government. ICE cannot be removed.
This Hope Corps. Yeah. Are you going to report on Israel attacking Beirut despite ceasefire? What do you think, chatter? Ops here. Hey, do this to beat us. Trust. What? Who is this guy and why is his head so small? Okay. How loud was it in there? It was crazy loud. So yeah, first speech was, let's be real, kind of low profile and kind of mid, right? No disrespect to MSU. I didn't bring it. Luckily, everybody else did, right? Because I didn't know what the vibes were going to be like. I've done these sorts of speeches on my own, but I never know what the energy is supposed to look like, right? And what's interesting is, I got a decent understanding of it, and the second speech, I brought it. I think I brought it.
What? When am I gaming? When's gaming, man?
Yeah. Another Rheingold L. No, it was awesome. The Rheingold situation is awesome. Like a lot of the outwardly pro-Israel Hasbarists are they're so tarnished. You got mocked by Summer Lee. Sorry, guys. You're comparing me to a legend, okay? I look, I don't like a lot of politicians, as you guys know. It's not a big secret, right? I'm very critical of our politicians, as that's what is supposed to happen. You're supposed to be critical of your electeds. They serve us. They're our servants. And if they stop serving us, we get mad at them and we hold them accountable and we pressure them to do the right thing. But there are some politicians who I just fucking love, okay? Summer Lee is phenomenal. I mean, she is spectacular. She is incredible. She has a voice. She can just bring it, right? She was bringing up the energy like crazy. I mean, she was blowing up the entire room. It was unbelievable, right? And Abdul Said is another one of those guys as well. Come on, chat. That's like saying you got mocked by Ichigo Kurosaki, Naruto, or any JoJo protagonist. Yeah. I forget. Because I yap a lot and I'm very confident in my skill. I got the gift of gab. I can do this for hours. I can be entertaining for hours. However, there is a very different skill for confident orators who are capable of just like motivating people, right? And Summer has that gift for sure. Be more passionate when you speak. We want to hear your volume. Yeah. But it was incredible. I mean, I saw Rashida Tlaib, who I love, as you guys know. Dr. Jihad stealing your thunder. After getting a taste, are you now addicted to Trump speaking for candidates, or do you plan on doing Trump speaking for candidates, or doing the same for Oliver Larkin? I'll do it for whoever wants me to do it. Guys, contrary to popular opinion, I'm a homebody. I like being at home base. It's not beneficial for me to be traveling around. It fucks me up. I'm tired. It ruins my diet. I can't work out. I'm not saying woe is me, but what a lot of these people think, especially in DC and everywhere else, they think that like, oh, Hassan is doing this to boost his own profile or whatever. It's not the case. I'd be perfectly fine. My profile would be perfectly fine if I stayed my ass at home. Okay. Did I enjoy it personally? Sure. Is this something that I look forward to? I wouldn't say that. It's the same with candidate profiles, right? I don't really like doing candidate interviews and candidate profiles. I do it out of necessity. The reason why I do it is because there are candidates who I trust. There are candidates who I like. There's a vision that I have for a better future in this country. And I know a part of that goes through elections, okay? In order to build a movement, you have to have a multifaceted approach. Okay? And it's obviously about organizing, direct action, tenant unions, labor unions, right? Like all of that stuff is a necessity. But a part of that, a part of this multifaceted approach is also making sure that we have 1, 2, 10, as many electeds as possible that are solid, reliable, that will keep putting the pressure at the highest levels in American office. Do you think emphasizing yourself as a socialist who only cooperates with Dems could help form a new party? Leaning from some of the nervous tent framework they've laid out for you as not fitting inside could be a real opportunity to say, you're right, me and my hoes are something different and more radical. I mean, guys, there's always this inside-outside pressure. I don't care. I don't care about party names. I don't care about anything. I just care about advancing materially the interests and needs of working class people all around the world, not just in the United States of America, but everywhere else. Like I want people to live lives free of the daily pressures that they currently experience that they don't need to. I want to relieve people of the unnecessary pressures. I want to unlock the maximum potential of mankind. These are my beliefs. This is why I do everything that I do. Okay? And that's it. March's fat chud dog is here. Yeah, and he's been barking up a storm at me. Oh, thank you. Anyway, Fat Gunner's here. But clean air, clean water, clean parks, clean streets, Medicare for all. Are you on Pod Save this week? I think so. But all right. Anyway, this was one of the questions that I got from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, JTA.
You want me to answer the Rabbi Shmuley question?
Yeah, I'm just not sure what you meant by that.
Rabbi Shmuley is pro-genocide. It's pretty simple. And what I was saying is, if you feel like there isn't enough courage within you, if you feel discouraged, then let spite be the reason why you go out and continue to fight the good fight for truth and for justice and for hopefully peace in this region. He was the first genocide dare that came to mind. I probably should have used Randy Fine instead. I feel like he's more of an annoying figure nowadays.
About a specific person.
What do you mean?
You're talking about a specific person, not a generic Rabbi Shmuley.
You did? Oh my God! You don't know who Rabbi?
I demand you clarify a statement I don't even understand, but it's definitely problematic because I was told it was. Are you talking about the public figure who appears on television frequently when you refer to him by name? Or, that was that I couldn't tell if he was like trying to do a gotcha thing or if he was like genuinely confused and thought that I was just like doing like a anti-Semitic meme or something by being like, this rabbi, what's his name, Shmuley, right? And I was like, no, I'm talking about there's one and only, That would be such a weird trope. Like, is that even a trope? What are we doing at this point? The conversation is like, when you like, what if I had used Randy Fine? Was he going to be like, well, I guess it's because you used a Jewish congressperson, right? It's like, no, that's like a very specific guy, man. There's a Jewish congressperson who I obviously deeply admire. There's plenty, but one that I have clearly not only admired but also am out stumping for one of his hand-selected candidates. His name is Bernard Sanders, right? So. These kinds of things are really funny. But there's three actually. TrueAnon did an episode called The Three Shmuleys. Yeah, I know there's other Rabbi Shmuleys as well. That's why I clarified it. I don't think these reporters understand how different the power differential is between them and you and your ability to navigate these questions. Yeah, I think there's like a lot of there are a lot of normal like old school media figures that get like stumped by questions like that. I feel like I'm not one of those people, right? I mean, I have to deal with like bad faith smears on a regular basis. But yeah, this one banged on the timeline. Look at this 1 minute clip from ASIN, 40,000 likes, bro. Look at that. Let's take a look.
A battle brewing against not only the corrupt fascist forces of the Republican Party, but also against do-nothing Democrats that would rather sit there and collect paycheck after paycheck and fundraise from corporate donors that put your interests second to the interests of those very same corporations that poison your water as they sit idly by, that make sure that every single piece of productive output in the wealthiest nation on earth goes back to our massive military-industrial complex that only brings about death and destruction overseas. Because remember, every single dollar that is spent on a bomb is stolen from each and every one of you, because that's a dollar that they spend blowing up a school overseas instead of building schools in your neighborhoods.
Yeah, the room was crazy. The room went nutty, right? The room went nutty. Man, I just want to say I trust Abdul Sayed the same way he trusts you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that he's chill, bro. That's off the top dome. Yes. Obviously I had some, I was a little bit rate limited on what I could and couldn't say because I don't want, like, especially when I'm on the stump, it's like a little bit different than what I'm saying on my stream. You know what I mean? He's not like accountable for every goddamn thing that I say and do, but in that situation, he probably would be. So I didn't go super hard on stuff. And there's also a time limitation. There's like a vibe. I know people do the meme where they say you got mocked by Summer Lee, which I mean, duh, she's incredible, but you should know you actually did super well. I think from my own, judging by my own performance, my past performance, the second speech was pretty good. But yeah, Hassan is a true America First patriot is right. That's the other angle that I was thinking about, where the other angle that I was thinking about is like, I wonder if we should just like talk about isolationism and like putting America first. Like these people have never put America first. They put Israel first. They put corporate interests first. They never actually put America and Americans first. Maybe they put American capital first, but we got to change that dynamic. And perhaps that could be a good way to like, I'm thinking about different ways of communicating this as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, the president just posted some insane genocidal evil shit. Do you guys have any response?
Of course I do.
Hassan Piker must be stopped. We cannot allow him. Yeah, the president just...
That's funny. I have been noticing that I'm getting a lot more positive feedback on TikTok than ever before with all of the onslaught of attacks. Obviously, Twitter is a nightmare, right? Twitter is obviously a nightmare, and it's unbearable, but and it's not even just Twitter is not just even a nightmare for like the Republican reactionaries, but there's also obviously there are a lot of forces that are totally aligned on the supposedly ostensibly Democratic Party side that play along with the insane smear campaign, right? You're low-key developing unk tendencies, liking and saving everything you see. No, that's for the algo, baby. You don't understand. A little too positive. What is this? He doesn't know this, but I shave my whole body just in case. That's so funny. Okay. We have to be careful about messaging not easily being corruptible into xenophobic nationalism. Yeah. I'm sorry, son. Ain't no way your good Dr. A.S. Abdul Sayed can compete with the electricity in this McMorrow room. Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand it, but like, there's these guys like Democratic Wins Media, like the centrist Democrat forces are actively pumping McMorrow. Like they are very clearly recognizing that if they slot in a semi like faux progressive, if they slot in a faux progressive into that race, they can like really eat away at the true momentum coming from the left flank, right? It's a very interesting dynamic because I know for a fact that if this race was a matchup, Abdul Al-Sayed versus McMorrow, or Abdul Al-Sayed versus Haley Stevens, especially because that's what it was supposed to be initially before McMorrow got in here, it would be over. It would be a blowout, right? It would be Graham Plattner. It would be the exact same situation as Graham Plattner. But I think the party has basically realized that they have a better shot at bringing in more manageable, semi-progressive figures that will not only like craft their response while keeping corporate donors in mind, but will also not take risky choices. Like they won't actually defend the interests of the people over the interests of corporate donations. They won't actually rock the boat. They won't criticize the rest of the party. Like I think the Democrats are a lot more aware, the politicians, I mean, are a lot more aware of where the party is headed, and they're trying to do their very best to stop it dead in its fucking tracks in the identical ways that they did with Bernie Sanders. because Bernie Sanders was almost like a singular figure, right? Bernie Sanders, when he was when he came out and fought back against establishment Democrats in 2016, there were not a lot of other guys like that. There wasn't like a robust caucus of Bernie-crats. There wasn't a big left flank movement. There were some, right? But it wasn't truly a force. And therefore, the population had never even experienced that option. For many Americans, that was their first interaction with a left populist candidate. They were like, wait a minute, this is how Democrats could be? I like that quite a bit. So they did everything in their power in 2016 and in 2020 to just like stack the deck against Bernie and rat fuck him, which they did, right? Successfully. But since then, more and more candidates have been able to primary bad Democrats and build a robust left flank. Now, there's obviously still a handful of them in Congress, but this time we're trying to push actively to bring even more of them, right? And when you have a lot of these left flank candidates, when you have a lot of these left flank candidates that are not beholden to the same interests, that are unafraid of shaking the party up every now and then, all of a sudden you have a block. All of a sudden you have political power. All of a sudden you can make a big fuss. You can apply legislative pressure. I mean, look at what Ro Khanna has been able to do. It's almost like a singular force, right? Criticisms of Ro Khanna aside, like, it's undeniable that he is using his position as a rep to maximum efficiency, right? He's maxing out on being a congressional representative, right? It's clear as day. Now imagine if there were a lot more House of Representatives, a lot more people like that in the House, a lot more people like that in the Senate, and they were all aligning with one another and creating these coalitions and advocating for certain things and showing the rest of the country that you could be a force, showing the rest of the country that this is how the party could represent itself. That's what they're afraid of, right? That's precisely what they're afraid of. And I think a lot of people understand that. That's part of the reason why you're seeing more and more people come out and defend me against the vicious smear campaigns that these guys are actively putting out there. Because here's the thing. They understand. Like, Bernie understands this. Faze understands this, right? He gets what this is about. It's not about me at all. It's not about the choice quotes that they can use from my 10 years of live streaming almost at this point. I mean, it's been 8 years, right? I've done tens of thousands of hours. It's not about any of that. It's about what we represent here in this community, right? And there are plenty of other people out there who share the same values that we do that are just not tuning into fucking twitch.tv to watch 8 hours a day, right? Like, it's perfectly normal. So that's it. And also, here's the beauty of it. A lot of the worst villains are coming after Abdul, so he can just like bring the fight back to them and position himself against all these Republicans. And it gives you a taste in the Democratic primary of how he'll operate. This is a good thing, right? How much money? Rick Scott. John James M.I. is right. Michigan Democrats should be ashamed to be seen with a guy who called for my death, celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder, and said America deserved 9/11. Like, none of this stuff is real, by the way. I mean, I didn't celebrate Charlie Kirk's murder, even though obviously that position is almost like an Israel position as well, where it swapped spectacularly on the internet, right? It went from something that the Republicans had a very heavy hand over, where they were just like trying to highlight him as this incredible martyr, this figure for the Republican movement, and now everyone is Kirkifying him nonstop. But it's regardless, they still don't stop. They just like, it's like a game of telephone. This is you lecturing us before the curtains right before you left MSU. Actually are fighting for your rights, that are actually saying, Donald Trump, we're done with all this, okay? We're done with this. If you are constantly worried, if you're like, why are the Democrats not here for us? Why are the Democrats not fighting for us? Well, you know why. Because guys like Abdul have a harder time getting out of primaries. They are much easier
that actually are fighting for your right.
A lot of this stuff doesn't even play outside of terminally online political nerds, right? Like if you ask someone if they agree that America deserves 9/11 out of context, should be like, that sounds kind of stupid. But if you try to say, yeah, well, this Twitch streamer said it and he campaigned with Abdul, so you shouldn't vote for him, people will probably be like, what? I just want Medicare for all. Exactly. So you need to see the boomer parents again. They bug in. Anyway, listen. It's undeniable that there are a lot of us out there in this community. We're all over the fucking country. We can fill up rooms wherever we go, especially a lot younger. Rooms with a lot younger people than you would normally expect to be excited about a fucking Democratic primary. Like, you think McMorrow, I'll just say it like this. You think Mallory McMorrow could go to college campuses and fill up rooms? No, of course not. Especially at this stage in a Democratic Senate primary. It's not happening, right? It's not happening. Like, it is not real. It's not a real thing at all. There are candidates who can bring that excitement. Obviously, it's not me, and it's not all of you guys either. I mean, it's Abdul and what he represents. That is part of the reason why there's so many people that are excited. But yeah, this is disgusting. Campaigning with a figure who glorifies violence against the GOP, including my friend Rick Scott in Florida, while spewing anti-Semitic rhetoric, is everything the voters need to know about. Like, they all sound like Democrats complaining about Trump. They all sound like Democrats complaining about Trump. This stuff didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work is because Trump was like, nope, fuck off. My values are my values. I stand 10 toes down on them. Okay? Now, obviously, his quote-unquote values are morally repugnant, right? But all of these like different quotes, these distractions, like, it didn't work. That's what the energy the Democrats have to bring as well. And unfortunately, many Democrats who are just corporate suits, representatives of like an eclectic group of different corporate interests, are not going to be able to do that. That's why they focus test everything that they're doing, because they don't have any real opinions. They don't have any real values. So they can't do it. They can't actually stand on those principles at all, and they have to shy away. They have to back away. But that's, I think, part of the reason why Abdul is going to do quite well, and he's doing quite well in this controversy so far. He responded to Rick Sky, said, "How much money did you make defrauding Medicare again? You're what? Waste, fraud, and abuse looks like in real human form. Should be ashamed. Get the fuck out of here." And that's it. Because a lot of the people that are shitting on me and claiming like, oh, this guy's really bad, this is a really bad guy, they have a laundry list of real villain behavior on the fucking timeline. They have done horrible things. They've done horrible things. As members in Congress, they've done horrible things. As people, for Rick Scott, he's done unbelievable amounts of I mean, he's stolen money from people. He's stolen money from some of the poorest Americans, right? I mean, he did Medicare fraud, Olympic level Medicare fraud. That's an actual villain. So you can always turn around and hit him with a diss you in a way that so clearly and so expediently shows that the words of a Twitch streamer, no matter how vulgar, is nothing in comparison to the real immoral behavior that Republicans demonstrate on a regular basis, right? You can't hang out with Benjamin Netanyahu, Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. You can't hang out with Benjamin Netanyahu and defend Israel and then talk about this Twitch streamer, he's anti-Semitic, he's dangerous radical. Like, you can't. That's an infinitely more radical thing that you're doing, right? You're a bad person. You are a fucking bad person for doing that. Anyway, speaking of people who still are trying it, though, Dana Fash. We're going to be talking about Dana Fash, obviously. I mean, I often wonder, like, how much more right-wing and pro-Israel can CNN actually get, especially considering that even before CNN gets sold to David Ellison and Larry Ellison, they're going pretty hard on this pro-Israel stuff, right? So I was on the plane And oh, before I get to the CNN stuff, actually, hold on. I got to give a quick shout out to Summerlee as well. My goat. Oh my
People
God.
who don't love their neighbor. It's our moment to stand, put up, or shut up. So don't take it lightly. I understand what we're up against right now. Young people, especially you guys, I understand what we're up against right now. I understand what it feels like to feel like there is no people who don't.
Unk at clap. Yeah. Yeah. So Olivia Reingold was there obviously as well. That was another good that was a good clap back on the Free Press and Olivia Reingold too. She posted a bunch of things. They know that we have power, Hassan Piker said on stage at the Abdul El-Sayed rally. He says a battle is brewing against do-nothing Democrats. Reporting for the Free Press. Crowd goes wild. One girl hasn't blinked in 20 seconds. Another is holding hand to heart like pledging allegiance. And it's really funny that like this is supposed to be silly, right? This is supposed to make us look silly and ridiculous. And because it's Olivia, she just wasn't able to do that at all. And it didn't work. It didn't work at all. But there was a couple moments in there. She's letting you aura farm. Yeah. 1 million views on yesterday's VOD, by the way. That's exactly what they're scared of. Yeah, I agree. Why is she stalking you? She's on the Hasanabi beat, I think, which is very funny. It's very funny that they got that going. Yeah, she is the same lady that followed me around election night. Yes, it's true. It's Olivia. And I think she likes me quite a bit. She watches the women of the crowd like a hawk, scoping out rivals for attention. She's obsessed with you. I mean, it's fine. I have worse ops than Olivia. The woman that denied the Gaza famine. Yes. So that was a good moment as well. Ted Cruz is coming after me too. Obviously, it's another one of those guys he's just like a straight up designated villain, right? He said a Democrat candidate for Senate in Michigan thinks it's politically advantageous to campaign with the Marxist Islamist who believes America deserved 9/11. This is today's Democrat Party. I said, we didn't forget what you did on 9/11, little man. Boom. Immediately, a little porn-a-rooney for me. Ted Cruz, never forget. Never forget. On September 11, Ted Cruz woke up that morning, turned on Twitter, and said, ooh, a little porn-a-rooney for me today on my beautiful 9/11. Okay? Wasn't it trans porn too? No, it wasn't. It was, I think it was like cuck porn or cheating porn or something like that. Yeah. Or incest porn, maybe? Something like that. I don't know. Stepmother porn. Bro, I was listening to Hasanabi heads giving interviews on the line, and they were being strategic. Oh, I think Hassan has cringe takes, but I'm here for Abdul. If you give Megaphonics the best chatter of the year, this is what you get. Wait, what? Don't give strategic fucking takes like that, you dipshits. No, just stand proudly. That's what they're trying to. They're trying to cut fucking propaganda to be like, oh, see, Hassan has no emotion. It's really stupid that they're even fucking aligning with Hassan. He doesn't actually bring a crowd at all. You guys don't have to do that. You can just be like, they're attacking him because they can't attack the fucking message, so they're trying to disparage the messenger. It's that simple. Y'all are so lame, dude. Don't be ashamed to fucking support me. You got Bernie Sanders out there supporting me. You got people who are prominent fixtures of this movement out there being like, no, we know exactly why this is happening. It's totally ridiculous. Right? Does this mean Hassan can joke more without much criticism now? Fox Business discussing Hassan the Hun campaigning for Abdul Say. You can find him crying for Cuba celebrating China. The far left and Democrats love this guy.
Senate battleground in this year's midterms is a hot mess.
I mean, I don't want to like watch all of this shit, but there was Hassan the Hun. Sam Harris thinks you're an amoral, juvenile, dishonest performance artist and nutcase not worth talking to, but thinks Ben Shapiro's a serious enough person and isn't sure whether he talked to Candace Owens. Yeah, these guys are so ridiculous, dude. It's so crazy. I don't know what to say. Like, you're such a silly person if this is your assessment. It's so obvious that you're almost exclusively interested in Israel. Like you test someone's seriousness by virtue of their Israel approach. If someone is fucking pro-Israel, then you're fine with them, even if you don't align with all the other stuff. Because, like, that's what Ben Shapiro is. That's like, what is his appeal? He is every bit the same reactionary as anybody else. And then on top of everybody else, he's also super pro-Israel, right? Why do people like Sam Harris even care so much about Israel? I mean, I don't know where his shit comes from, but I don't know where his attitude comes from, but I think... I mean, he's super Islamophobic. That's probably what it is. A lot of liberals are pro-Israel, man. A lot of like a lot of the people that came out of intelligentsia and academia, they got inundated with pro-Israel messaging and social conditioning, and that's where we're at. But yeah, we'll do the Dana Fash bit as well. Ben Shapiro just yells, "You are more pleasant." No, I yell a lot too, but what was I gonna show you? There was another thing. We gotta do Dana real quick as well, but this is not the full one. Do we have the full Dana Fash? What is going on? What? Wait, it's right now? I thought it was at 1. Oh, shit. It's right now? Okay, hold on. I'm going on right now. Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye. All right. I'm actually going to talk to Trita Parsi right now. Okay. And we're going into situation monitoring right now. Hold on. Road Unify. Hello. No. That's not the right one. Shit. Microphone. Select the microphone. Hello. No, that's not the right one. Shit. Headset, stream input, roadcaster. Okay, let's see. Hello?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
How's it going? I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. 1 second, Trita. I'm obviously live. There's like 40,000 people watching right now. But I also, as a part of this broadcast, I have to obviously do a bunch of quick fixes instantly. But welcome to the broadcast. It's a real honor to have you here. We couldn't do this over Discord. Yeah, we couldn't do this over Discord, unfortunately. So it's just there's this is not my favorite, let's say. But hold on, I'm trying to. I mean, I'm like weirdly. I look weird on your screen, right? I can see myself. It looks weird.
You go in and out. You're blurry, and then it goes
really?
into focus, and then it gets blurry again. But right now, it's been focused for a couple of seconds.
Okay, hold on. Here, we'll just do it like this. I'm using Zoom Workplace for the first time. Anyway, it just looks like squeezed or something. I don't know what it is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Trita Parsi, ladies and gentlemen, we are monitoring the situation. First time on the broadcast. Been a fan of your expertise and your takes for quite a while now, and very excited to have you here.
Thank you. Really happy to be with you.
And it's an interesting time to be having this conversation with you. I mean, this is, I would say, a lot of vindication for someone like yourself. A lot of your assessments have borne out, and it's obviously still a horrible time as well. I hope. Do you have any family in Iran?
Plenty of family left in Iran.
Yeah, I hope they're doing all right. I don't know if you've been able to speak with them at all.
Other family members, my parents, aunts, etc., have been able to connect with some. I've tried a few, have not been able to get through. I've been able to talk to a lot of other people in Iran. It seems like it is depending on whether they have functioning VPNs and things of that at this point.
Okay. I'm still trying to hold on 1 second. I'm still trying to fix this thing real quick. God damn it. What is happening? I don't know why this is so difficult. All right. You know what? We're just going to keep going with the desktop. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So, for those of you who might not know, would you please introduce yourself? You're at the Quincy Institute.
Yeah, so my name is Trita Parsi. I'm the executive vice president, one of the co-founders of the Quincy Institute, a think tank in DC that I would say is very different from other think tanks because we are favoring a U.S. foreign policy of military restraint and focus on diplomacy. We want an approach that would completely end our endless wars and dramatically reduce our militarism.
Yeah, one of the only good think tanks. Very few of them in the DC blob, but you guys are certainly there. And you're also obviously unjustly maligned with regular frequency, something I'm quite familiar with myself. Recently, Laura Loomer was demanding your deportation. There's a lot of conspiracy theories around what you represent and who you are, but it's a big part of the reason is because you happen to be Iranian and also anti-interventionist or anti-wars of choice, and have a long career of consistently advocating for such things. Which I guess before we get to the imminent situation, the ceasefire, is it happening? Is it not happening? One of the things I wanted to ask you about is do you feel like there is a real shift in the collective conscious in the Western world, and especially in the United States of America, about our foreign entanglements? Do you feel like there's a new wave of anti-war advocates, even if they're not necessarily going out and protesting, even though they certainly did during the Gaza genocide?
So I think that's a really interesting question because in some ways we've had counter waves as well. So, for instance, I mean, the reason why Quincy could have been founded was precisely because there had been the failures of Afghanistan, Iraq, all of those interventions had led to a scenario in which there was a significant degree of lack of confidence in the direction of American foreign policy, an elite consensus that had also had kind of collapsed. And that opened up the window in which you could push through new ideas and new frameworks, new entire paradigms of foreign policy. So when we were founded in 2019, we were definitely riding on a wave in which it was clear that new thinking was needed. And some of it was actually because of Trump. In our view, Trump won was not a break with American foreign policy. Trump won was a caricature of what American foreign policy always had been. And in some ways, it became much clearer to a larger number of people that you're right, that actually is what our foreign policy has been. It's been shrouded in all of this beautiful language to make us think that it wasn't. But in reality, it's just naked now. And that gave us a major boost. But then you had the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, in which suddenly a lot of folks were like, well, there's another bad guy on the international scene. And then they were just rushing back into militancy. And that's not to defend Russia. I think that was an illegal invasion. Things needed to be done to prevent that. But the manner that the Biden administration went about it, I think, was highly problematic. There was almost no diplomacy. Prior to the invasion, Biden had numerous conversations with Putin, but he never put NATO expansion on the table to see if that actually could have prevented the war. And in retrospect, we also now have some of his senior people from the NSC coming out and saying, yes, if we had done that either then or in April when negotiations were taking place between Russia and Ukraine, we could have prevented a war. We could have prevented hundreds of thousands of deaths. Back then, we were advocating for that. We were advocating for diplomacy, and we got maligned, ruthlessly by a lot of folks. Earlier on, we thought that perhaps they also had kind of seen the light and were turning against the militarism, but they rushed straight back into it. Now I think we're in another wave in which, again, because of another failed war, another war of choice, we're seeing that folks are once again realizing we really got to change our foreign policy. This is not acceptable, particularly now when you have a candidate that actually won his election twice based on rallying around ending forever wars and maligning the rest of the Republican Party for having gone along with it. And yet he himself is now someone who not only has started this war, he's done a regime change in Venezuela. He's threatened to annex Greenland and potentially even Canada. So I think there's a reaction to that now that is coming. And part of the challenge in all of that, Hassan, is that so far, most of the waves that we are riding on in which opportunities are being created to push for a better line, is coming not as a result of us proactively being able to create those opportunities, but these opportunities are being created because the other side, the primicists, the militants, are actually failing in their projects and committing more and more mistakes.
Yeah. Speaking of that, obviously, one of the major mistakes so far has been this quagmire that we found ourselves in Iran. Now, it's not a secret that both Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli foreign policy has always wanted to get the United States of America and the administration to play ball with them to finally go to war with Iran. It kind of feels like, and I want to hear your perspective on this, it kind of feels like the Israeli objectives here were somewhat at odds with the American objectives. The broader American objectives are regime change, have a pliant regime or a pliant government that will play ball with the United States of America, whereas Israel's objectives here broadly seem to me to revolve around complete destabilization, creating a failed state in Iran, regardless of what the impact might look like in the aftermath of the Balkanization, fomenting ethnic tensions and making sure that there's never a sovereign state there, or even a American puppet state there that could inevitably turn on Israel once again as it goes along with this greater Israel project. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you have any input on that?
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right. Let me add perhaps a bit of detail on it. I think from the US standpoint, for Trump's standpoint, he thought that this was going to be an easy victory. He would either get the collapse of the Iranian regime, or there would be a capitulation, perhaps a Venezuela scenario in which someone else would emerge from within that system that would take over and would essentially be a pliant ally of the United States. That is not the Israeli objective. The Israeli objective always was to essentially establish a balance in the region that gives Israel complete maneuverability and dominance. And that means that they're less concerned about the nature of the regime and more concerned about their capabilities that Iran has. I wrote my dissertation on Israeli-Iran relations, and I remember in one of my trips to Israel, I had this conversation, this interview with an Israeli general who said, look, Iran and Israel used to be friends, and that's true from the 50s and 60s and onwards. But then Iran turned into an enemy. It is possible that Iran turns into a friend again, but after that, it can turn into an enemy once more. And as a result, Israel's focus is going to be on the capabilities and capacity of Iran rather on the nature. So it doesn't matter if it's suddenly a pliant regime there, because the fear is that regime may fall. It will be replaced with another regime. And if the country then is in good shape, has the capabilities, has a strong military, that could be a major challenge to Israel's domination. And as a result, they've been going, and we can see that very clearly in their idea of how this war is won. It's just about degrading as much as possible, bomb them back to the Stone Age, and then if you need to, in a year or 2 years, you bomb them again. This is what they are pursuing against almost all of their immediate neighbors. In Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, we've seen it. They call it mowing the lawn. It's extremely dehumanizing.
Yeah.
But this is, from the standpoint of having either not wanting to have peace with the neighbors or given up on the idea that it's even possible, then this becomes the next best thing. You just constantly mow the lawn every couple of months or years and make sure that no one in the region or no combination of countries in the region can pose that challenge to you. Now, as this continues, it nevertheless puts Israel in a perpetual state of warfare, not just with its immediate neighbors, but increasingly with more and more states. Iran was a challenge. It is at war with Iran now, hoping to degrade it, set it back a couple of decades, not have to worry about it. And the minute it looked as if it was being successful with Iran, guess what happened? Suddenly in Israel, you had started to have more and more commentaries from senior people, former prime ministers, saying that Turkey is the next target.
Yeah.
Turkey is now the most dangerous country in the region. Erdogan is the most dangerous person in the region. And the very same type of a campaign of painting Turkey as a source of instability, the most dangerous country in the region, unchecked, it's a threat to Western civilization. All of those things that you started to see in the early 1990s vis-a-vis Iran, you're now starting to see them vis-a-vis Turkey. And it shows you that there's no end to this type of policy. If you adopt this type of a security doctrine, you're constantly going to be at war. Now, if that's a choice the Israelis want to make for themselves, I guess they have the right to make that choice. But who's underwriting that choice? It is the United States, because Israel is not a country powerful enough to be able to sustain that type of a policy. The only reason why it can be sustained is because of a constant level of military, political, diplomatic, and economic support from the United States. In fact, it's written into American law. We have in the United States a law that says that Israel has to have the qualitative strategic edge in the region, that we make sure that no countries in the region get the best type of weapons. The best type of weapons the US produces goes to Israel, and everyone else gets a second or third rate kind of weapons in order to ensure that we sustain Israel's strategic qualitative edge.
Yeah, we also set back other regional actors that we have security cooperative agreements with, like Lebanon. Lebanon mysteriously doesn't have any anti-air defense systems. And in this day and age, I feel like it's impossible to maintain any sort of sovereignty without anti-air defense systems. But then you realize what Israel is doing in southern Lebanon right now, and you understand exactly why America has refused to ensure that the Lebanese standing military has any sort of serious capacity to purge invading forces, because that invading force is always going to be Israel.
Indeed. And also take a look at what the US's posture in Lebanon has been. The US has agreed to and pushed with the Israelis that the Lebanese government needs to disarm Hezbollah. And in order to do so, the US has been willing to help the Lebanese army become powerful enough to take on Hezbollah, but not powerful enough to be able to deter an Israeli attack.
Yeah.
So we're ensuring that type of a perpetual weakness in all of the areas around Israel in order for Israel to have that sense of security, which then means that for Israel to feel secure, everyone else have to feel insecure.
Yeah. So let's talk about the military objectives here, right? The United States of America, led by Donald Trump, has had a lot of inconsistent messages on why this war was supposed to be waged. On day one, they said it was because Israel was going to attack with or without us, and therefore we had to go in and do a first strike through perfidy, once again, just like what took place in the 12-day war. The Omani negotiators came out on U.S. television and openly explained that Iran had conceded on some of these maximalist demands surrounding the enriched uranium and where to put the enriched uranium, which Iran has consistently utilized as a mechanism for leverage in an effort to not necessarily develop nukes, which they clearly had a fatwa over and had no interest in doing, but instead as a way to bargain against the sanctions that were implemented on Iran. And there obviously was the success of the JCPOA, which Donald Trump famously destroyed once he was in office. There was only one party that was obviously unfavorable to the JCPOA, and that was Israel. And they let their criticisms be known and be heard. And plenty of Democrats in Congress were also antagonistic to Barack Obama's foreign policy there, because they also were beholden to the interests of Israel. Now, one of those objectives was taking out the enriched uranium from Isfahan, which is where we suspect the 500 kilograms, I believe, of like nuclear grade enriched uranium is. Another military objective was to deteriorate the strike capabilities of Iran. That was also part of the negotiations process as well. The idea that they had to limit their ballistic munitions strike capabilities to 200 kilometers, suspiciously outside of the range of Israel and Tel Aviv. And they failed to do that. In the process, Iran also closed up the Strait of Hormuz, which 20% of the entire globe's energy passes through. This is something that they had the capacity to do for decades, for 47 years, is part of the reason why America was worried about what could happen in the aftermath of the Iranian Revolution. And yet they had never done this, with some exceptions, I guess, with the Iran-Iraq War. And they failed to reopened the Strait of Hormuz by force. Now Iran is collecting tolls passing through the strait, $2 million in Chinese yuan in tolls that they're going to be that they're going to be sharing with Oman as well, according to their assessment. And they continuously have pummeled not only the Gulf states that have American bases and also have been playing a role in striking Iranian targets, and also Israel as well. We don't know exactly what the damage to Israel has looked like, but all of this has been a spectacular failure, which leads to where we're at now. Yesterday, Donald Trump said in the morning that he was going to do genocide. He was going to eliminate the entire Iranian civilization. He was going to snuff them out. And then by nighttime, he backed away from that. And we found out that on background that they were actually petitioning for the ceasefire. They were actively trying to get this ceasefire. The Americans were, contrary to how they've postured so far. Do you feel like that was because they have failed to achieve their military objectives? And where do we go from here? Sorry, it's a long question, but I wanted to give a little bit background to my audience as well.
No, I think there's no doubt that it is the failure of this entire mission that has led to a scenario in which the United States very aggressively was trying to get a ceasefire. I mean, in fact, if Trump could have, he would have ended the war 3-4 weeks ago and just left. But he couldn't, because the Iranians had leverage. They had the control of this Strait of Hormuz. They could continue to strike at GCC states. They could continue to strike at Israel. So, he had ended up going into something in which he no longer was in control of. And pressure was used to get other countries on board and helping get some sort of a ceasefire. And when you take a look at what the parameters of the ceasefire are, it is essentially allowing the Iranians to continue to collect these tolls, which is a tacit agreement that they are now in control of the straits and that the US can't do much about that. And secondly, the basis of the negotiations is going to be some variation of the 10-point plan that the Iranians put forward, not the 15-point plan that was essentially the terms of Iran's capitulation that the United States put forward. Now, there may be some disagreements and lack of accurate information of what exactly is in those 10 points. The one that I have used when doing some of my analysis has been based on what was available publicly, but it's very likely that in the course of exchanges of messages and indirect negotiations, those points may have been amended somewhat. But I think the gist of it is probably remaining the same. And Trump even said that this is a reasonable or a workable basis for negotiations. So truly, Trump went forward, issued these genocidal threats, I think very well aware and inclined to come to an agreement by evening time, and that would be a caving by and large to what the Iranian position was. But in order to kind of cover that up, he was issuing these threats in order to make it was the opposite, as if the Iranians were coming and essentially bending the knee to him. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be important for any world leader to have a narrative of victory, but even more so for a superpower to make sure that it doesn't lose face. It's always going to be the case, probably more so when someone with the psychology and the personality of Trump. The question now, of course, is this going to work? What could make it work? What could not make it work? A critical element in the Iranian 10-point plan, which we know is true because they're repeating it publicly, is that they're demanding that Israel is also interest in the ceasefire, not just vis-a-vis Iran, but also vis-a-vis Gaza and Lebanon. Now, I think there's 3 reasons why the Iranians are doing this. The first one is because they have to show that solidarity and they cannot abandon Hezbollah. There's a perception that Iran abandoned the other groups in the axis of resistance in 2024. And now Hezbollah actually came to Iran's aid in this war, and Iran cannot afford to look as if it is abandoning Hezbollah. That's one. Secondly, I think there's also a recognition on the Iranian side that as long as Israel continues to bomb its neighbors, and Hezbollah in particular, there is a risk that that war will once again flare up further and bring Iran into it, as it already has twice. And if you go back to October 7th, 2023, and a lot of the commentary that came out back then, and including what the Biden administration said, they said crucial to make sure that this war does not get regionalized. It's been totally regionalized now after the Israelis and the US attacked Iran. So the Iranians recognize if that continues in Lebanon, this war is going to come back to them at some point. And they're not looking for a ceasefire. They're looking for an enduring end to the war. The third point may actually be the most important. This demand is there to test whether the United States is willing and capable of reigning in Israel. Because if it isn't, then what is the value of a ceasefire with the United States?
Yeah.
Because if Israel can restart these wars and the United States is incapable of staying out when Israel decides that a war needs to be initiated, what's the point of having a ceasefire with the United States? And I think this is very crucial because the Iranians have reached a point in which they actually don't necessarily want a ceasefire. They're not trusting these agreements. They're trusting that there should be enough deterrence so that it actually deters the US and Israel from attacking, rather than there being an agreement that is the foundation for a longer term peace.
Yeah. So let's talk about that element, right? I've said from the beginning that given the diverging or conflicting interests of Israel and the United States of America, regardless of how both parties have communicated their desires, America has to rein Israel in. And this is not just the Iranian demand. This is just what has to happen in this situation, considering that they haven't been able to accomplish their military objectives. Do you feel like that's possible at all? Because since the so-called ceasefire was implemented, obviously Iran continued strikes as well on Tel Aviv. That could have been because of the way that the Mosaic defense has been structured. It's decentralized. Or it could have been for some other reason. We don't know. I'd like to hear your perspective on that. But also, Israel started bombing other parts of Lebanon, as they are known to do, in, I think, a direct effort to spoil what this ceasefire could potentially look like, because it was not a secret that they were very frustrated. As a matter of fact, there's some reporting that came out that suggested that Israel did not even know that this ceasefire negotiation was on the verge of being signed until the very last moment, and they were very frustrated by it. I mean, I saw Hebrew Twitter last night; they were going crazy over it, right? So do you feel like America will actually try to restrain Israel? Where do we go from here? Is the ceasefire gone? Is it over? What do you think?
So on the first question, I think it's really crucial. It's like, can the United States do this? Can they stop Israel? I think it's actually a real problem that we've reached a point in which the superpower asks, can it stop the country whose defense and military industry is completely dependent on the United States? The reality is obvious to me. Obviously, the United States can. It's a question of whether the president is willing to pay the political price for implementing that and pushing through that, given the fact that there's going to be a lot of resistance. There's you're going to have to deal with a lot of lobbies, et cetera, that are putting Israeli interests arguably in front of US interests, et cetera. That's what the real issue is, not that the US cannot do it. Because if the United States actually says we cannot do it, which was exactly what the Biden administration proudly said, I mean, what kind of superpower are you if that is the case? I mean, to me, it's just stunning. And if you listen to Joe Kent, who just resigned from his position in as the head of Counterterrorism Center, I mean, he's laying out details exactly what the United States needs to do, the specific things that the United States needs to take away from Israel as part of this ongoing support to make it clear to the Israelis that the US is absolutely serious. And we do have examples of that in the past. We have the very famous example of how Reagan told Menachem Begin, you got to get out of Lebanon because the TV images of the massacres that Israel was causing back in 1982 was reaching American audiences, upsetting a lot of upsetting Reagan himself. And he got him on the phone and he said, you got to stop doing, you got to pull out. And when Menachem Begin pushed back, Reagan essentially said, well, then you're not going to get the, I think it was the F-16s at the time that the Israelis were buying. And, 20 minutes later, Menachem Begin calls back and says that we're pulling out. So obviously this can be done. In fact, it was done just a couple of months ago by Trump himself.
Yeah.
After the Israelis struck Doha, He really was under pressure from a lot of the states in the region that came together and demanded this of him. He told the Israelis that they have to stop, and he even brought Netanyahu to the Oval Office, had him read an apology to the Emir of Qatar. And then later on, when the Israelis denied that this happened, the White House released the footage showing that this was being done.
Yeah.
What Trump has failed to do is to sustain that pressure. It cannot be episodic. If you want this to stop, you have to put it on, and then you have to sustain it to make sure that the Israelis do not find a way out and then start a war or put that pressure on you again.
Absolutely. They do. America does have this power, and rarely chooses to enforce it, especially under the Trump regime. We have we've, I think, changed the dynamic in this relationship. I like to say that we put Israel in the driver's seat of our MENA policy specifically, and it's obvious that it's no longer just a special ally status, but instead has a commanding role in what American foreign policy looks like, considering that the GCC states are far more valuable to the petrodollar, far more reliable as far as trillions of dollars of investment into American companies. The fact that Israel can so easily throw them under the bus and turn these American bases into missile sponges, pretty much, and shake up that relationship so dramatically, implies that America's willing to take a loss here, a spectacular loss, both billions of dollars of equipment that they've lost in the process, but also a loss in its force projection capabilities, which I think are going to be far more consequential. I'll give you a perspective that I doubt that you've heard from anyone, though. I think that America getting a bloody nose in this situation is not necessarily a bad thing, but a good one, because I think it will force the United States of America to be a little bit more restrained in our endless endeavors of empire and imperialism. And I think that's ultimately going to lead to a hardened multipolarity that will force America to reconsider how aggressive we are in our force projection around the globe, and maybe even recycle some of the endless amounts of dollars that we spend on our military industrial complex, and instead, hopefully, you spend that on ourselves, on our, fixing our potholes, hardening our infrastructure, maybe even Medicare for all, things of that nature. That's my perspective. I want to hear what you think about that. And then
so look,
the other question, the follow-up question to that will also be, do you feel like this is different than the military quagmire in Iran, in Iraq, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and why?
Yeah. So on your first question, it actually goes back to what I mentioned to you earlier on, that the kind of openings and waves in favor of a more restrained foreign policy has come as a result of the failure of these wars. So that's the trend that we have seen. I mean, it is the Iraq war and Afghanistan war that just really created a massive opening that led to Trump channeling that anti-war sentiments on the American right in 2015 and winning on it, even though all of the pundits in Washington who were all, embedded in this Washingtonian thinking of things thought that was a huge political mistake. Turns out there was an absolutely winning card for Trump. But here's what I would have much preferred that the United States, instead of getting a bloody nose, actually proactively adjusted its foreign policy in the right direction, not as a result of a mistake, but as a result of a wise, forward-looking decision, recognizing the nature of power and that we are not going to be unipolar forever. We have stopped being that. And as a result, if we want to be able to sustain a strong global position in the long term, we actually do need to have an approach that is far more careful, far less reckless, and far more focused on American interest and the American people, rather than all of this money that we're spending, 750 bases around the world. The other country that has a lot of bases around the world outside of their own territory is Russia and China. Russia has 11. China has 1 or 2.
Yeah.
We're at 750.
It's not comparable.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's just not comparable. The cost of that, the manner in which it dictates the direction of American foreign policy towards more militarism, because that's the tools that we have. We have more lawyers at Pentagon than we have actually diplomats at the State Department. What does that say about our priorities? And what does that say that with those priorities, could we easily shift in a different direction? So I think it's going to be very hard. And I'm fearful, though, that the real shift will not come unless we have really big mistakes, bigger mistakes than this one. Because at the end of the day, if I want to say something positive or give Trump credit for something, I would give him credit for taking this deal and getting out of this war. I think the outcome of this negotiation will be a failed outcome. I don't think the likelihood is that great that it will come to an agreement. I think the most likely scenario is that it will be a non-agreed status quo that will come out of this, in which the two sides actually don't make an agreement, but nevertheless, the US doesn't go back into the war. The Iranians continue to control the straits, but they don't get the sanctions relief that they're looking for. Because at the end of the day, the two sides are too far away from each other to come to an agreement, but they nevertheless have a common interest in not going back into full-scale war. Now, it's not a great outcome at the end of the day. It may not be very stable, but most other American presidents, and we have now seen it, once faced with a debacle like this, what do? They just kick the can down the road. They just keep on telling the American people victory is just a couple of weeks or months away. And then 20 years later, we have ended up spending $2 trillion changing the government of Afghanistan from the Taliban back to the Taliban. So pulling out is costly, but it's actually far less costly if you do it now than you wait a couple of more years.
And to the second question, I'm going to repeat it because it was very long. Do you feel like this is a different scenario than the purposely long and convoluted military quagmires that we found ourselves in with Afghanistan, Iraq, and even Vietnam as well? Because that didn't actually put a dent in America's force projection capabilities. And if so, why? Because I do believe that. I think that this is different because there's a lot more focus on what's going on. And this is the first time we've actually dealt with a foreign adversary that had the capacity to strike at profit centers, in particular, both in the GCC and also in Israel, and shut down the Strait of Hormuz and create a global panic around the energy markets.
So I think you're onto something there, because what you have in Afghanistan and in Iraq was, in Iraq, the United States won the war militarily in 3 weeks, right? And then the United States lost the peace. Same thing is true in Afghanistan. The Taliban were defeated, and then they came back because the United States could not stabilize the country. It could not help set up a new functioning government. Here, we're talking about, frankly, a military defeat. Not in the sense in a direct battle, but because the Iranians managed to play the asymmetric card very cleverly and very effectively and squeeze the global economy that would just put the United States in a terrible situation and other countries in even worse situations. And as a result, we are where we are right now. So in that sense, it is very different. Saddam Hussein did not manage to bloody America's nose. Iraq and the instability that followed did bloody America's nose. But that wasn't a military defeat. It was a political and diplomatic defeat.
Yeah. So I guess what do you foresee taking place beyond this this situation where both parties don't actually align, but like the battle lines are drawn regardless? America fails to achieve his military objectives. It clearly is incapable of successfully attriting Iranian strike capabilities, given the asymmetric warfare that they've conducted. Do you see any stability here? What do you perceive China's role to be here as well? Because they are a major partner to the Gulf states, and they do get a lot of their energy from the Gulf states. They were capable of crafting a successful agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia in the past as well.
So Hassan, sorry, I do have to leave after this answer. I have another meeting at 4 o'clock, but I think that's a very important question. No, of course, my pleasure. And I wish I had more time. China's role in all of this is going to be very interesting. there's a simplistic view in which, whenever the United States shoots itself in the foot, that this benefits China. And to a certain extent, that's absolutely true. But China is also in need of stability, and it's particularly in need of stability in the Persian Gulf. So it is not happy to see an instability that has almost doubled the price of oil, creates all of these different challenges. And it could get much worse if this war had continued. So those are very worrisome signs for the Chinese as well. And it does appear, I haven't gotten this confirmed, that towards the end of these talks, the Chinese did weigh in with the Iranians to get them to agree to this, even though it's mostly on their terms. There was still a debate because, as you know, the Iranians agreed to a ceasefire back in June that Trump asked them for. And there's been a lot of commentary in Iran and a lot of rethinking in Iran's security establishment, in which the dominant narrative now is that it was a mistake for them to agree to that ceasefire. They should have continued the war then. And that has now also reflected the debate in Iran in the last couple of 24, 48 hours. And the Chinese appear to have weighed in and successfully gotten them to agree to this. Now, in the scenario that I see most likely, again, not preferable in any way, shape, or form, it will be not an entirely stable situation, but also not an entirely unstable situation. Because again, as long as the common interest from both Iran and the US is not to get back into a full-scale war, they will probably try to avoid that. You will see the Israelis continue, but I don't think they can continue the war that long without American help. So instead, it will shift towards more of a dirty war, assassinations, and things of that nature. There will be great difficulties between Iran and the GCC. They have a lot of mistrust and anger on both sides to overcome. Obviously, a lot of the GCC states are very angry of having been hit as hard as they have been by Iran. Iran is very angry because it believes and has some evidence that many of them did allow the United States to use their airspace and Israel and territory to do attacks against Iran. And mindful of the fact that this was not just ordinary warfare, there was a lot of war crimes. It has, really deepened the anger on the Iranian side. In the best case scenario, the region manages to find its own path towards a new security architecture in which they manage and shoulder the responsibility of security in the region themselves, rather than relying on outside sources and forces. That ultimately, the latter part of just constantly having an external guarantor of security, tends to actually create pockets of security, but a lot of instability at the same time.
All right. Trita Parsi, everybody. Thank you so much. Is there
Thank you
anything
so
you
much
would
for
like
having
to
me.
promote before I let you go?
Love for the folks to follow me on Twitter at tparsi or at Substack at Trita Parsi. And you can also go and check out the website of the Quincy Institute, which is quincyinst.org.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you
real
so much.
honor to have
Appreciate
you on
it.
the broadcast.
Likewise.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was, like I said, Trita Parsi of the Quincy Institute. Phenomenal voice. This was a last second interview that I secured with him, and it was really awesome that he was willing to do it. That's the reason why it was like a much shorter conversation that we had. Hopefully we'll have a much longer one as well. Chatters are expressing a huge interest in having Trita come back on stream in a couple weeks. Yes, we will do that. Absolutely. But now we will get to the situation monitoring before I get to the Abdul El Sayed stuff, because clearly it's a big deal. Trita, never wrong. Parsi, outstanding pickup for the stream. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, he's a brilliant voice in this space. And of course, consistently maligned unjustifiably, as is the case with most people who are right, but too early. Okay. That's just kind of how it goes. All right. But I'll talk about Dana Bash and like the insanity of her panel. But before I do that, I think it's important for us to monitor the situation a little bit, right? And as you guys might know, I'm a big fan of the Quincy Institute, so I rep them pretty hard. So let's get into it. Yesterday there was a taco moment after Donald Trump said he was going to do a genocide on Iran. And then he backed away from it at the last moment. And there's obviously some details that they're not covering adequately on mainstream news. I'm going to pee real quick while this runs. and I'm going to give you some commentary on it. Let's go.
In just a few hours, the Pentagon will provide an update on Operation Epic Fury as President Trump reveals a ceasefire between Iran has now been reached.
The commander-in-chief posting in part, quote, "I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate."
The president says this marks a big day for world peace, revealing the next steps for the region. Quote, "The United States of America will be helping with the traffic buildup in the Strait of Hormuz. There will be lots of positive action. Big money will be made. Iran can start the reconstruction process. We'll be loading up with supplies of all kinds and just hanging around in order to make sure that everything goes well."
Here to break down the latest peace proposal is Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yinks live in Tel Aviv. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey, Lawrence, good morning. It was truly the 11th hour, down to the wire, when President Trump announced this ceasefire agreement shortly after the Iranians put out a statement matching the president's and then proceeded to launch missiles and drones at Gulf countries and U.S. ally Israel. Here's what it looked like in Tel Aviv after the ceasefire was announced.
So one of the funniest things about this instance was, of course, the fact that a lot of the pro-Israel spokespeople on the internet were instantly complaining and saying, "What do you mean? This is supposed to be a dual ceasefire," which, for the record, a ceasefire means both parties agree to it regardless, right? Like a dual ceasefire is redundant. And yet they had to say it's a dual ceasefire because Israel usually never ceases to fire. So when they got a little taste of that medicine back, immediately they were complaining. There was obviously my favorite Israel propagandist, my favorite Hasbarist last night, who was saying, like, look what they're doing to us. You know, sirens over Tel Aviv again. He said, breaking, nonstop Iranian, Eyal Yacobi says, breaking, nonstop Iranian missiles raining down on Tel Aviv less than 2 hours into the ceasefire. Since the ceasefire began, Iran has attacked Israel, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Where is the outrage? I said, oh, you don't like it when one side doesn't cease its fire during a ceasefire. Interesting. Because in every single one of these circumstances, it's like you only get to violate these rules over and over again because you operate in this might makes right environment. And all of a sudden, if you have another adversary in the region that is mighty enough, when the shoe's on the other foot, you don't like it. Okay? I don't know what the reasoning for why the Iranian missile strikes were while the ceasefire was supposedly agreed upon. Having said that, Israel very clearly did not want the ceasefire to take place anyway. They were very frustrated. They were not cut in on this deal, as I talked to with Trita Parsi earlier, and they were losing their minds on the timeline. It turns out that they were not cut in on the fact that the ceasefire was even taking place at all. I assume that it's a byproduct of the Mosaic system that they have, which is decentralized. There's no central communications hub in the Iranian defenses, so these different hubs were still continuing to pummel because they didn't get the message that the ceasefire had been implemented. So Israel, on the other hand, this morning, started slamming Beirut and southern Lebanon, killing hundreds of people in what the Lebanese side said was the most intense bombing that they've withstood since the beginning of this last Operation Epic Fury.
What you just saw there was an Iranian ballistic missile with a cluster warhead, those bomblets raining down on Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv. This came after the ceasefire was announced by President Trump and an indication that it will take time to get this agreement in place. Now, since the overnight hours, the fire has stopped toward Israel but has continued toward Gulf countries. The agreement in part appears to be holding, but we're looking now at the details of this deal. The Wall Street Journal reports on Iran's proposed plan that includes 10 separate points. Some of them include the U.S. guaranteeing a non-aggression pact with Iran, continuing Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, acceptance that Iran can enrich uranium for its nuclear program, removal of all primary sanctions on Iran, removal of secondary sanctions, an end of all UN Security Council resolutions against Iran, an end to the IAEA's resolutions on Iran's nuclear program, compensation payment for Iran and its war damage, withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region, and a ceasefire on all fronts. Those are a number of points that are not going to be reached, and the next 2 weeks are going to be critical as negotiators try to hammer this out. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posted a statement on X overnight agreeing with the president about the ceasefire, saying Israel also supports the U.S. effort to ensure that Iran no longer poses a nuclear, missile, and terror threat to America, Israel, Iran's Arab neighbors, and the world. The 2-week ceasefire does not include Lebanon. We're also getting a look inside of Iran today, where pro-government demonstrators gathered and chanted in the streets of the Iranian capital here in Tehran. They chanted death to America, death to Israel. They were burning U.S. flags and chanting victory in the aftermath of this nearly 40-day war that erupted in the region with the beginning of Operation Epic Fury. So right now, the entire world looking at this 2 weeks to see if some of these details can be worked out for a ceasefire agreement, but it is a delicate moment in.
And for the record, this could have been a total ceasefire hoax to forcibly lower the price of the oil barrel, which worked, for the record. It went from $114 approximately down to like 90. I don't know where it's at currently. But is that good enough for Donald Trump to advance and ensure that this ceasefire holds, which would require restraining Israel, as I've said, bringing Israel to heel? That is the primary focus of American foreign policy. It should have been the primary focus of American foreign policy since October 8th, 2023. And we've moved in the exact opposite direction. A lot of people at the State Department under Biden understood that this was a necessity, and some even quit their jobs publicly because Biden wouldn't do it. And now there are even people in the Trump administration that recognize that we have to restrain Israel. We have the power and capabilities of restraining Israel, but we're choosing not to. And any kind of leaning in the direction of Israel is going to have devastating consequences for the entire world, and we're seeing that unfold. We've been seeing that unfold for the past 39 days, and yet seemingly there's no restraint being demonstrated from, or no restraint being demanded even from the Trump side. That's where we're at. And considering the fact that it's clear that not only did America nor Israel actually achieve any of its strategic military objectives, and on top of that, created this global panic that obviously had some pressures on Donald Trump. It's clear that the reporting that stated that America was the one that was pushing for this ceasefire is most likely real, right? Some might say it's propaganda. Oh, you're just doing resistance propaganda. But it's obvious that there was one party that was no longer willing to engage in this war, and that was the United States of America. I truly do believe that Iran wanted to set up sufficient deterrence. And if America doesn't think that this sufficient military deterrence was established and thinks it can continue waging this war, upping the ante, targeting more civilian targets, killing more civilians in general, and trying to turn a country of 93 million people into Gaza in the sufficient time frame that is necessary, where they are not capable of destroying the global energy markets permanently, they're going to go back into it. They're going to go back into it. But there is the Financial Times reporting that I'm obviously leaning into that says U.S. directly pushed Pakistan to arrange a ceasefire deal while talking about escalation. So they were, on the timeline, they were posturing in this, barbaric manner. But behind closed doors, they absolutely were begging for a deal. They were begging to stop the bleeding, right? it makes sense. It makes sense when you think about the war objectives that were not accomplished at all. And not only that, but also Donald Trump personally admitted that initially that they thought that the Iranian demands were quite reasonable, that there was the workings of a negotiation, right? There's the workings of a actual negotiation there. And the Iranian demands, the 10-point demands that they've made, have not changed since day one. So what changed? Well, what changed is the calculation, right? This doesn't mean that Iran has unlimited striking capabilities, because I have seen a lot of people, some of the resistance Twitter that constantly talks about the IRGC or Hamas or any number of different resistance fronts as though they are pawns in this game that they're playing on the internet in a way that's not dissimilar to how like the pro Ukraine, pro NATO Twitter talks about Ukrainians and how they have to consistently wage war. Resistance Twitter was mad. They're like, what are you doing? You need to blow up Israel further. Like, this is so stupid. And it's like, Iran doesn't have unlimited munitions. And the Iranian government's primary focus is still to maintain sovereignty, right? And ensure that their people are not being slaughtered. So they understand their limitations as well, which is, I think, the reason why they were fine. They thought that maybe they had established sufficient military deterrence. They had done enough economic damage that America would actually finally come to the table and treat them as a serious partner. Okay? Iran doesn't have unlimited munitions, and Iran doesn't have unlimited appetite for death and destruction. You have to understand that. They are thinking about this very clearly. They've demonstrated sufficient restraint in the past, and now they've demonstrated sufficient military deterrence. But they obviously interpret the battle conditions in a way that's a lot, in a way that's much more strategic than random Twitter users. Okay? I don't think their capacity plays part in the specific war at all. No, there's a limit. As long as the war wages on, there's also a lot of economic damage that they're taking. Okay, their facilities are being destroyed. Their railways are being bombed by Israel, which is what happened yesterday. They don't want their power plants to fucking to be bombed into oblivion. That is not just tremendous economic damage, but that will cause a lot of deaths. Okay? So from their perspective, they've been able to show the world that they have the capability to force America to concede. Whichever, from this point on, as long as America abides by these conditions, then they're good. Now they can rebuild, right? That was the goal. Their primary focus here is to ensure that there's sanctions relief and to ensure that America actually restrains Israel so they can have some regional stability. It's clear that is the goal. We'll see how much appetite America has for continued death and destruction. Unless they actually threaten to withdraw from the talks, it just sounds like impotent whining, which actually invites more violations, says Matthew Petty. And I think there's some truth to that, because it's very clear that Israel is not interested in abiding by these conditions. And given that Israel has always played the role of spoiler here, you have to make it very clear that if you're Iran, you have to make it very clear that like you have to restrain Israel. Okay? Galibaf released this statement on the violation of the 3 key clauses of the 10-point proposal agreed framework before the start of the negotiations. The deep historical distrust we hold towards the United States stems from its repeated violations of all forms of commitments, a pattern that has regrettably been replaced once again. As the President of the United States has clearly stated in his Truth, the Islamic Republic of Iran's 10-point proposal is a workable basis on which to negotiate in the main framework for these talks. However, 3 clauses of this proposal have been violated so far. Number 1, non-compliance with the first clause of the 10-point proposal regarding the ceasefire in Lebanon, a commitment that Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif also explicitly referred to and declared as an immediate ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and other regions effective immediately. This includes anywhere and everywhere where there's an axis of resistance force, including Gaza as well. It's not just Lebanon, but there is, I think, a little bit of miscommunication that's taking place here. on the American side. It might be strategic miscommunication or it might be genuine miscommunication. Regardless, the entry of an intruding drone into Iranian airspace, which was destroyed in the city of Lar in the Fars province, in clear violation of the clause prohibiting further violation of Iranian airspace, and the denial of Iran's right to enrichment, which was included in the 6th clause of the framework. Now, the very workable basis on which to negotiate has been openly and clearly violated even before the negotiations began. In such a situation, a bilateral ceasefire negotiations is unreasonable. If you understand that your enemy does not respond to anything but force, does not respond to anything but military deterrence, that's the only way that they engage in restraint. You have to go back to what's been working for you. Okay? And like I've said, I think there are international partners here that have to play a much larger role in demanding that America restrain Israel, or maybe even demand Israel cease its attempts if they want the Strait of Hormuz to be reopened again, right? But considering how much Israel firsters have been frustrated when the ceasefire was even released, it doesn't seem to be the case that there's enough appetite internally in the American government to go back to implementing some sort of ceasefire here. I think it almost feels like a repeat of Russian failures and a repeat of even the Western agitation and the Western interest in continuing the maximalist demands being made on their side with the unjustifiable and illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia. I don't know where we go, but what I can tell you is that the Strait of Hormuz is no longer open for business. I'm happy that the worst possible outcome has been avoided. Donald Trump engaging in the nuclear option, or the worst possible outcome of Donald Trump blowing up the energy grid in its entirety in Iran, has been avoided for the time being. So that's good, especially because that was the threat. But it's obvious that there are a lot of forces that are frustrated by this. Here is some of them. Eli Afriat says, the time has come. Instead of Israel and the U.S. eliminating the regime is bombing Israel. Dear Trump, what did you do all this for? E. Fatlow says, the ceasefire is disappointing. At the end of the day, the people of the West have prioritized their own needs over the liberation of the people of Iran. I don't have enough fingers to count the amount of people who have ranted at me about gas prices for the last few weeks. Kosher says, I don't know how to feel about this. Noah Magid says, this makes me sick. Dr. Eli David says, what the fuck? Trump just shared a Rakshi's post that he accepted the regime's 10-point proposal. As a reminder, here's the 10-point proposal. This, of course, will be seen as weakness by the entire Middle East, says Yoav Kaufman. A ceasefire is a very bad idea for the future, for the Iranian people, for Israel and the USA, and basically the whole civilization. Oriel, I don't like it at all. This is a weak move and a wrong move. Finish the job. Terminate the regime. Noah Magid, I don't give a fuck about the Strait of Hormuz. Daniel Rubenstein, Iran has not conceded anything. Spring in Iran. I'm so angry, dejected, and heartbroken right now. Fuck. Trump instantly went from hero to zero, says Oren Haas. Are you disappointed with the ceasefire? Asks Vivid Prowess, all the way from India. Noah Magid again. I'm disgusted. A fake ceasefire with terrorists while we're in shelters, missiles over our heads, while millions of innocent Iranians have lost hope. Yoav Kaufman, what good does a ceasefire do for anyone but Iran? Donald Trump, fine. Here's a ceasefire. Islamic Republic presses send on ballistic missiles to Israel. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's very obvious. It's very obvious that the Israeli population is not very happy about this, or at least some of the mouthpieces. Not very happy about the ceasefire. They wanted the death and destruction campaign to continue. They wanted to kill more Iranians. They wanted to destabilize Iran. They wanted to destroy Iran. And they don't care if the rest of the fucking planet collapses into this massive energy crisis. Very selfish. Okay? Unbelievably selfish. Why are we not telling Israel to suck it? We are the United States of America. We are the hegemonic superpower, at least for the time being. Why don't we act like it? All of this, of course, erodes the confidence that even some of Israel's most loyal supporters have from the American side of things. So, nevertheless, we continue. We continue the battle. The battle that's waging. Here's what J.D. Vance had to say.
First of all, I actually think, and there's a lot of bad faith negotiation and a lot of bad faith, propaganda going on. I think this comes from a legitimate misunderstanding. I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states. First of all,
this also makes it virtually impossible to deal with the United States of America or Israel. If you're a foreign adversary, if you're a nation in the periphery, how the fuck can you ever trust America to hold its word? Like, it's crazy. This is a very different dynamic. We live in a different world now. 39 days ago, we existed in a totally different reality. We are no longer in that reality, and I don't think people in positions of power at the highest ranks in the American administration recognize that. Okay? I don't think they recognize that at all. Meanwhile, Shabazz Sharif openly stated ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon. How many times will we have to keep quoting the direct words of Trump Vance teams as mediator? It is insane the low regard these people hold us in. The United States literally texted Prime Minister Sharif what to say on Twitter, and it included Lebanon. Exactly. We know it. We know they copy pasted it. It's ridiculous, right? It's totally ridiculous. It's sloppy misinformation that doesn't even work any longer. I think people have hardened their positions against Israel and against Israel's malignant influence on American foreign policy and sometimes even domestic policy, as a matter of fact. And there's no way to change that dynamic. But what also doesn't make sense is that America is still operating as though it has the capability of doing unlimited death and destruction. It has the capabilities of achieving its strategic military goals, and they're just simply not doing that. But they could, right? Like, you talk like this, and you act as though there's miscommunication. You say it's propaganda only if you actually have the military might to back it up. And it's very clear, given that America was consistently demanding a ceasefire, that they also, at a certain point, recognize that they don't have that capacity any longer. So on the one hand, they're still behaving like they could bring Iran to heel. But also, on the other hand, they don't have the force to show it. Or at least they don't have the appetite for further death and destruction, especially while Iran continues to close the Strait of Hormuz and dominate what takes place in the energy markets, or has a say in what takes place in the energy crisis that will unfold. It's clear, and Myrov is correct. Netanyahu will absolutely use Lebanon to torpedo this after defense officials made clear Hezbollah disarmament is not a realistic goal in this current operation. So we know the reason the press on it is for domestic politics, but it's not just domestic politics. I think this is like Netanyahu. I think Netanyahu is not just like responsive to like domestic pressures here. I think this is the overall goal is like, they're pretty open about it. Like, they think Iran is far weaker than it's ever been. The Iranian axis of resistance, the Iranian-backed axis of resistance, have been diminished in its capacity to restrain Israel militarily. That is true, right? So they think this is the only time where they can ever do this. This is the last possible moment for them, especially because what what they did in the process caused tremendous anger towards Israel, and they've lost their base of support in the Western populations. No one will ever see Israel the same ever again, and therefore it's going to be much more difficult for these countries to continue being reliable allies to Israel, both on the political front, where they can offer political cover in the United Nations, or even when it comes to offering military aid to Israel directly. So this is their last shot. That's the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu wants to sully this deal, because he wants to keep dominating Iran. And we've already known, because I read pieces of this New York Times article yesterday. We know that this was always like the Israeli goals that they suggested to Donald Trump in an effort to get him into pulling the trigger was a lie. It was built around complete lies. The idea that this would be just like Venezuela, demonstrable lie, right? The idea that they could foment enough instability internally to destabilize the regime if it didn't turn into like a Venezuela-style operation where they decapitate the existing leadership and the new leadership that comes in is much more pliant to American demands. Also a lie. The idea that they could successfully attrit Iranian strike capabilities against the Gulf and Israel, also a lie. That didn't happen. The idea that Iran wouldn't even strike the Gulf states was immediately disproven, right? So here we are.
In the region and a lot of moving parts. Guys?
Trey, so you obviously were reporting there on strikes that were still coming into Israel. There are reports that strikes are still happening in the region. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this morning there were reports of explosions on 2 Iranian islands and at least 1 oil facility off the coast of Iran, an indication that the United States or Israel is still conducting airstrikes against the Iranian regime. But it also comes amid new incoming fire toward Gulf countries. Both Kuwait and the UAE have reported dozens of ceasefire violations. We're talking about drones and missiles being launched over the Persian Gulf toward these countries. And so it raises questions about if this ceasefire is actually in place, if this is an issue of getting the command down to some of these lower IRGC officials in the south of the country. But what we have seen in the aftermath of that announcement by President Trump is a variety of ceasefire violations by the Iranians that has included ballistic missile fire toward Israel and drone and cruise missile attacks toward Gulf countries.
So, Trey, speak to the enriched uranium. It still remains a key issue in all of this. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I've been talking with Israeli officials this morning, and they have been relatively quiet, simply responding, we need to get the job done. They raise a lot of questions about Iran's enriched uranium and questions about if this will be able to be addressed at the negotiating table. They pointed out that nothing has changed from the early days of Operation Epic Fury. And you remember U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff talking about how the Iranians first entered into negotiations before this war began, saying that they had enough highly enriched uranium to create 11 nuclear bombs. Israeli officials are asking, where is that enriched uranium? And if the United States believes that as a result of these 2 weeks, they'll be able to get a deal that addresses this nuclear threat. One official said, we don't want Iran to turn into North Korea. And there are serious questions that still remain about the ability to secure that highly enriched uranium, the main reason that this operation began.
Trey, there are 2 things in the 10-point proposal that are really the biggest red flags, according to all the articles I've read and according to us. Number 1 is the acceptance of the enrichment. They want to continue to enrich uranium. We can never allow them to do that. In fact, we want to go in and try to get that enriched uranium that is buried underground. So, but then I'm reading.
That question is how? Like, if we have the capability to do so, why haven't we done it? You know, everybody talks about what we should be doing, but at the end of the day, it literally turns into don't siege Leningrad, just take it. Okay, all the armchair generals on television just keep demanding that America do something that is clearly outside of their capabilities. Because if it was within their capabilities, they would do it. Like, do we feel like America has this power and they're just simply not doing it because they love Iran or something? Like they want Iran to have the enriched uranium? What a stupid demand this is. It's been 39 fucking days. Obviously, if America could do it without putting boots on the ground and engaging in potentially a decades-long conflict with Iran that will be devastating for every party involved in it and all of the other forces in the region, that will only continue the pain that the global energy markets experience. Like, in the absence of that, it's clearly not in the cards for Donald Trump and the American forces to go in and like take out the enriched uranium. There's one way to do it, or there was rather one way to do it. It had happened in the past, and that was with the JCPOA. If you want to restrain Iran's nuclear grade enriched uranium capacity, if you want to restrain Iran's nuclear capacity, there was one way that we had successfully done that, right? It was with the JCPOA. Barack Obama did it. Donald Trump ripped it apart. It's clear that there's no other outcome here. And it shouldn't take tens of billions, almost $100 billion of loss and the loss of American troops from the American perspective, because they clearly don't care about the people that they're killing. But it shouldn't take all of that for America to finally come to that conclusion. And it seems to me like America is still not at that conclusion, even if behind closed doors, they're communicating as though they've reached that conclusion. Because that's the other element here. Behind closed doors, they're begging for a deal. America is, right? In public, they're saying, oh, Iran is begging us for a deal. It's over for Iran. We've destroyed them. Look at how mighty our military is, right? But the reality of the matter is they understand that they don't have the capability to do this. They don't have the power to do this without engaging in a potential decades-long boots-on-the-ground invasion of a country that is much larger than any other country that we've invaded, that has 93 million people in it, many armed combatants that have a lot more experience in engaging in counterinsurgency and insurgent-style asymmetric warfare. And unlike Afghanistan or unlike Iraq, there's also clearly a strategic choke point that they are controlling. Elon Levy says if President Trump lets the Iranians charge a toll for ships in the Strait of Hormuz, then every time you fill up your car at the pump, you will put money straight in the pockets of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This will be a humiliating disaster for the United States. Mortaza says this is hilarious because Israel is currently inflicting a global economic crisis on the world by continuing the war and even overriding any attempt to ceasefire and generating extreme anger in the process by people far from the conflict whose material interests are being harmed. Now that there's an obvious split emerging between the United States and Israeli positions, foreign countries can safely engage in economic boycotts, derecognition of passports, and other measures targeting Israel until it ceases the war without having to confront Washington. That is what has to happen. There's also the other side of this, obviously, the Democrats and the prominent Democrats that are supposed to be like celebrating the fact that Donald Trump is retreating from the absolute worst elements of his goals, absolute worst goals that he had of like death and destruction, full-blown genocide campaign. Chris Murphy went on CNN and was like, "Oh, this ceasefire is unbelievable. I hope it's not real. I hope it's not real at all."
Stand out here. One, the safe passage that Trump is saying is going to be provided.
This is what he said last night, and then he continued to say even more unhinged things.
Weeks as part of this, kind of the central part of it, through Hormuz. They're saying is possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces, which obviously implies that Iran controls the strait. And then from the National Security Council, they say this confers upon Iran a unique economic and geopolitical standing in terms of them regulating passage through the Strait of Hormuz. So what do you hear in all this?
I mean, listen, who knows what's going on? Donald Trump lies every single day. Clearly, he's not telling the truth. But if you accept even part of the Iranian statement, Donald Trump has agreed to give Iran control of the Strait of Hormuz. That is extraordinary. If you go deeper into the statement from the Iranian National Security Council, they claim that Trump has also agreed to Iran's right to enrichment, to suspend all sanctions against Iran and to allow Iran to keep their missile program, their drone program, and their nuclear program. Now, who knows if any of that is true, but if at the very least this agreement gives Iran the right to control the strait, that is cataclysmic for the world. And it is just stunning that that's
like, how can Democrats not understand that this is horrible messaging, right? Like, this literally proves what I've been saying all along, what we've been seeing all along, which is the idea that Democrats are not actually against destroying Iran, blowing up Iran, and waging war with Iran. They just get to sit there and act as though this wasn't in the cards for them. This wasn't their desire at all. This is no different than the same energy presented by Chuck Schumer in that famous Taco Trump. Trump always chickens out. If you're going to cut a side deal and negotiate with Iran without telling us, like, that's bullshit. You have to bomb them. It's the same shit. And this is the most transparent version of that sentiment, where instead of saying, look, we should have never gotten into this predicament to begin with, and although it's a worse position overall for Donald Trump, I'm glad that there's finally a pathway towards a ceasefire, long-lasting peace in the region. But instead of saying that, they're saying we could have done it better. We could have continued this war in a more effective manner. Or saying Donald Trump should continue this war in a more effective manner to absolutely destroy the Iranian nuclear capabilities. Like, there's no alternative here. They don't even present the alternative that Democrats famously advanced. Use the JCPOA. Say this is a worse deal overall from an American perspective than even the JCPOA. But it doesn't matter. Like, it's clear that we have to negotiate with these people. It's clear that we have to engage with Iran in diplomacy rather than constantly warmongering. All of this is unnecessary. All of this was unnecessary. We learned a hard lesson. But as you know, as people with clear minds and good conscience, we should now turn around and say, all right, we're just gonna diplomatically engage with Iran. Commend Donald Trump even for following through on this, regardless of how tyrannical he is. But they're not doing that. What they're doing instead is agitating Trump. And what they don't realize is this makes them look consistent. This makes them look like cowards. It makes them look weak. Okay? To the average person, they might not care about what happens to the Iranian people, but they don't like that the war is continuing and their gas prices are going up. And the Democrats are supposed to be in opposition to that, right? At least they're trying to communicate their opposition to that. But when they come out, when a ceasefire is imminent, and they say, oh, well, this is a massive failure for Trump. What the fuck are you doing? You should, you didn't achieve any of the strategic goals, and don't actually provide any counter or don't actually commend even an attempt towards diplomacy, even if Donald Trump is inconsistent on that front and most likely will not pursue diplomacy and try to create a long-lasting ceasefire here, long-lasting stability in the region. You're basically saying to the average person that's watching, to your base, is that you would be more violent than Donald Trump. You would have done a much better job of bringing Iran to heel, utilizing the same resources that Donald Trump is utilizing right now. And that's fucking bullshit. This is the major problem. Democrats are not in disagreement with killing Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Democrats are not in disagreement overall with engaging Iran militarily, right? They actually want it, and they like that Trump did it, and now they can act as though they were always in opposition to it. But even then, they don't present a strong enough opposition. They don't actually try to get people on the record with the War Powers Resolution when they should have. Right now, they're talking about it, but they should have done this months ago at this point, right? And they consistently say, oh, it's the process. It's the process that we disagree with. You didn't ask us for advice. You didn't ask us for confirmation. Fuck the process. You should be undermining the argument in its entirety. Why are we waging war with Iran to begin with? It's unfucking believable. And while Americans, like I said, are maybe not as careful or considerate about the everyday existence of ordinary Iranians and what we're doing to them right now, they do see their tax dollars light on fucking fire, and they do know what it looks like when they're paying, $20 extra at the pump. They see that. They see that as a negative impact, and they also tie this back directly to Israel. They know that we're waging this war because this is Israel's goals that we're accomplishing. Okay? So for liberals to try to frame this as like we would have actually accomplished Israel's war better than Trump, well, that's a fucking idiotic argument to present. You look silly. You're not even utilizing the moment. You're not even taking advantage of the moment to set a clear distinction between yourself and the Trump administration. I can't believe it. They're proving exactly what I've been saying all along. What we've been saying all along. Democrats, having spent 5 weeks doing nothing but silently go along with Trump's barbaric war, are now complaining that he chickened out. They are going on cable news and lamenting the fact that Trump didn't commit a genocide tonight. Deeply, deeply unserious people. Scum, even. They're doing the same technique again. They're saying, diet fascism. We would have done restrained fascism, diet fascism. We would have done more organized fascism.
2-week ceasefire is insufficient. We need a permanent end to Donald Trump's reckless war of choice, which is why House Democrats have demanded that Speaker Mike Johnson immediately reconvene the House back into session so we can move a war powers resolution that will end this conflict permanently.
That seems unlikely to happen. What do you actually think is going to happen in this 2-week period? What do you need to, assuming that doesn't happen, what do you need to see happen or want to see happen in this 2-week period?
Assuming it doesn't happen this week, we go back into session next week and we will present a war powers resolution as soon as it becomes available to us to do so as a matter of privilege on the House floor. All we need are a handful of Republicans to join us. The American people strongly oppose this reckless war of choice and know that we should not be spending billions of dollars to drop bombs in Iran while Republicans and Donald Trump are unwilling to spend a dime to actually make life more affordable for the American people, including but not limited to by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. It's unbelievable in terms of the priorities, and yet we've seen this president's behavior unhinged, unpresidential, unconscionable, including the messages that he's communicated to the American people over the last few days.
Yes, Dana Fesh talked about me. I know. I'll cover that. I will get I will get into that in a little bit. Okay.
2-week ceasefire is.
Yeah. Calling for a war powers resolution after the ceasefire announcement is funny, but it will still backfire on Hakeem Jeffries, because the reason why he's calling for it after the ceasefire is because it's over, right? By his calculation, this is the least effective time to demand this. However, given the tendency of Israel to ruin ceasefires, even though he said this last night, that ceasefire is not happening any longer. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. So now he accidentally backed himself into a corner where he unironically has to do the right thing. Fantastic. So expect him to turn around and say, all right, maybe now is not the time for ceasefire later down the line, or hold off on, not the ceasefire, sorry, hold off on demanding a war powers resolution. Because from his perspective, now would have been the perfect time to make it seem like he's against Donald Trump's unnecessary wars of choice. Okay? So much for the wouldn't be just as bad shit from libs. I know. It's very, very frustrating that so many liberals are stuck on the optics of the situation and refuse to recognize that our electeds, our representatives, are not representing our interests. And that's precisely the reason why they're pushing. That's precisely the reason why they're pushing back on the war powers resolution. But Chris Murphy had a back and forth with Adam Johnson that I thought was really good and really illustrative of the problems that I see with the way liberals are communicating on this. Adam Johnson says liberal messaging that 1, centers Israel's security, 2, paints Iran as strengthened, and this being inherently sinister. And 3, demagoguing about a nuclear program or reinforcing the logic of U.S. and Israel hostility. These aren't gotchas, they're racist, morally stunted frameworks. The U.S. bombed a school, killing 150 girls. It attacked with provocation. It destroyed hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure, killed 4,000 plus with no moral or legal justification. No morally sound person should care what was achieved. This isn't a game of risk, Adam Johnson says, and he's right. Okay? We have to oppose this war on the moral front, on moral grounds. And we can also oppose the war on legal grounds. We could oppose the war on the reality that it is also leading to economic disaster. Okay? There's a million avenues. But the one thing Democrats consistently keep doing when they talk about the process, and they did this with Venezuela as well, okay? When they did this with Venezuela as well, they said, oh, well, Maduro's a tyrant. He's awful. He's a monster. We're glad that he's getting deposed, but we just don't like the way that Donald Trump did it. It's like when you give him the justification, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Ro Khanna absolutely cooked on this as well. He went on MS Now and he said exactly those words. I'm glad that there's at least someone saying the quiet part out loud, or the part that Democrats are refusing to say. Here it is.
What do you say to people who say the 25th Amendment or impeachment, as we have seen twice before with this specific president, when it's controlled by Republicans, that's just not a realistic scenario?
I think you're using things too tactically. You've been so immune. How about moral principle? How about that when a president threatens to blow up other nations, that we have to see some response to saying that we have a higher moral dimension, that there's something called conviction in politics, that the lives of the Iranian people matter, that the lives of people in Gaza matter, that the lives of people in Cuba matter, that when Donald Trump is echoing Gallant and calling people animals who live in Iran, that we will be a Democratic Party who says that is morally wrong. And when we don't say that, and when we hide behind proceduralism, and when we hide behind tactics, and we hide behind the fact that we don't have votes, then what we say to most Americans is we're not willing to fight for our vision for America, for our moral vision. You know who is willing to fight for his vision of America? Donald Trump. And you know why the Democrats keep losing? Because we don't have conviction in our politics. We don't have inspiration and passion in our politics. We've got people there 50 years who read the same scripts, put out the same bland statements. Get out. Let a new generation lead. You've been ineffective. The base doesn't like you. The base wants fighters. The base wants people with moral vision. And the only people the base are more upset with than Donald Trump is the ineffective leadership of the Democratic Party to stand up when a president of the United States is threatening genocide.
That's it. This is wall-to-wall bars, 1 minute and 34 seconds of cooking, okay? That's the message. You should not shy away from saying exactly this, okay? This is one of the best messages I've seen from any elected, speaking clearly about the demands that voters are making of their elected representatives to demonstrate moral courage, to demonstrate a vision, charting a better pathway, a better future for the United States of America, especially with our foreign entanglements, especially with our dealings with Israel and what we've done in Iran and many other places as well. The human element of this cannot be lost in the conversation. It's crazy to me, but it is objectively racist, right? It's objectively racist to just be like, well, yeah, we killed a whole bunch of school children or whatever, but at the end of the day, if we achieved our war goals, it would have been fine. Like, would it have been fine? Yeah. Adam Johnson also talked about this with like Chris Murphy, because Chris Murphy says, Iran says the U.S. has agreed to their 10-point plan, which gives them control of the Strait, lets them keep their nuclear program and also their missiles, and drop sanctions against Iran. If this isn't true, and let's hope it's not, it's proof that there's indeed no deal. Adam Johnson said the thing about Chris Murphy is he is a pathological he has pathological triangulation brain. from immigration to war. He simply can't resist taking a decent lefty stance, then immediately attacking Republicans from the right and lamenting over the same confused process or competency criticism, right? It's so stupid. It doesn't make sense. You look inconsistent. You look like you are utterly devoid of any principles on this, right? And Chris Murphy actually replied to it, right? Murphy explicitly, this was what he said after. He said, Iran says the U.S. has agreed to their 10-point plan, which gives them control over the strait, lets them keep their nuclear program and also their missiles, and drops sanctions against Iran. If this is true, let's hope it's not, right? I just read that. Murphy explicitly lobbies against the tentative ceasefire deal. Pray tell Chris what terms you think Iran will accept after the U.S. sneak attacked them, killed their leaders, did an Oklahoma City bombing on a girls' school, killed 4,000 more. Guys, I know Fox is doing a hit piece on me again. They haven't stopped doing it. Please shut the fuck up, okay? It doesn't matter. The hits are going to keep coming. We have to cover actual news, okay? I can't sit here and listen to racial animus directed against me and also candidates that I align with over and over again for hours every single fucking day, okay? We have to be serious. Although they are unserious, here, the Hasanabi fucking broadcast have to be serious. Someone has to actually fucking cover the news, okay? Who cares what they say? Anyway, Adam Johnson says, did an OKC-style bombing on a girls' school and killed 4,000 more. Some versions of this is the only way it ends. To which Adam Johnson actually replied. He said, if you've paid any attention to what I've said for weeks, you know what I want this war to end immediately. So, of course, I'm glad if the ceasefire holds. That's not inconsistent with pointing out that we're worse off now than before the war started and that it's bad if Iran controls the strait. I've been 100% clear. There is no military means to reopen the strait, and the only way forward is for Trump to stop the war. I think it's important to point out how ham-handed this entire endeavor has been and how nobody should see Trump's actions as some expert maneuver in war-making and statecraft. To which he also had some pretty decent replies to. I don't know where the replies are, but he basically had a back and forth with Chris Murphy that ended up with him saying, like, how do you think we address the genuine demands that Iran as a sovereign nation is making about the reparations that they are owed, right? Clearly, the toll process actually is the least is the process in which they can demand these reparations with the least amount of friction, because this way America doesn't do direct cash payments, and rather allows Iran to collect the toll and rebuild their country and rebuild the damage that we have dealt them, right? It makes total sense. It's not like Congress is going to pay for it. It's not like anyone else is going to fucking pay for it. And they are owed reparations. It's understandable, right? To which he responded with, fine, but some people are going to think, oh, yeah, he said, how one views Trump's competency is irrelevant to the substance of the ceasefire terms. Clearly, he's an oaf, but acting as if it's some giveaway to Iran is doing the pro-war camp's work for them. What other mechanism than tolls could Iran possibly leverage to secure reparations? Chris Murphy says, fine, but some people are going to think the agreement is good and the war was worth it. Our goal should be to show that the war and the subsequent ceasefire, if it really exists, was way worse than the war having never happened. And this involves showing how the world after a ceasefire is worse than the world before the war started, which is why I point out it's bad that Iran now tolls the strait. If people think this agreement is a victory, then it will open lanes for future Trump illegal wars. Yeah, you know what this actually opens up a lane for? Trump to continue this illegal war, because he sees this kind of stuff and he goes, okay, everyone's cooking my ass. They're not letting me eat the damage on this ceasefire. They are obviously calling out. They're obviously agitating for more destruction. Fuck it. Maybe we do actually do boots on the ground military warfare. So, like, because Chris Murphy isn't wrong, right? This is correct. From an American framework, if you are thinking America first, American empire first, yes, of course, America is in a worse position overall. But this requires, like, this situation requires people on the opposition party to position themselves actually in opposition with the overarching goals of the Trump administration. This is the problem. The problem is Democrats are not in opposition to the goals that Trump has demonstrated. They want those goals. They just never seemingly had, I guess, the courage or the mania to follow through on it. These aren't narrative abstractions, Adam Johnson responds with and says, answer 2 questions. Do you think Iran has the right to missile defense? Do you think it's reasonable for Iran to expect war reparations for what you yourself concede is an illegal war? And if so, what mechanism should guarantee this? You very much appear to be opposing baseline Iran self-defense as such, and any type of recompense for Iran after the U.S. killed thousands, destroyed hundreds of billions of infrastructure in a war of aggression that we all agree was unjustified and illegitimate. Is that a fair summation? This is what we mean when we say these guys are 2 sides of the same coin with like some minor differences. But if you are justifying the underlying reasons as to why this, like some kind of military action had to happen, right? Then it doesn't matter how belligerent Trump is, right? Then it's just a difference in tactics. What Democrats should be doing in this moment is to oppose the war in its entirety, not justify the goals that Trump has presented. You have to oppose the goals that Trump has presented. You have to ask a tough question and say, why are we doing this? We, on the one hand, claim it's an illegal war, it's unjustifiable, but on the other hand, we say, that it's good. It's technically something that needed to happen, right? We had to kill the Ayatollah. We had to actually destroy Iran's munitions capabilities, right? It's ridiculous. It's a sovereign country. Of course, sovereign nations are going to have some kind of military deterrence to ensure that what's happening to Iran right now doesn't ever happen again. When you present an argument like this, you're basically saying, I agree with the goals, I just don't agree with the methods. And you don't even demonstrate what your methods would look like. And that reads as inconsistent to the average person. The average person is not putting a lot of thought into this situation. But they are aware enough to recognize that this is an inconsistent way to talk about this issue. Okay? I mean, I think Adam Johnson's 2 questions were great, and the answers should be, yes, of course, Iran has a right to self-defense. Of course, every country has a right to defend itself. It's how you defend yourself that matters, right? Anyway, I'm supposed to be talking to the Kneecap Boys right now, but I don't know where it is. Okay. All right. Yeah, we can reschedule as well if because I'm what the hell? We just lost the internet for a second. But it's back. It's back. That was crazy. Yeah, what the Sigma is right. We're back. We're back. We're back. All right. There was actually a really good statement from PM Pedro Sanchez. I hate to get PSO'd here, but he said, the government of Spain will not applaud those who set the world on fire just because they show up with a bucket. And that was bars, okay? That was absolutely bars. Let's be real. He cooked on that one. He cooked on that one, okay? Switch the vid to live now, huh? Wait, what? I don't know what you mean by that. So I showed you one good statement from Ro Khanna opposing the war on all fronts, including moral and legal, right? And I showed you one bad statement from Chris Murphy. Obviously, the Democrats are channeling exactly what Chris Murphy's been saying. In an effort to immediately oppose Donald Trump while still maintaining some kind of militant posture, they end up justifying why Donald Trump did this to begin with. Okay? Suleiman Maswadeh says, an Israeli source tells me about the ceasefire. We were surprised by Trump's decision. We received updates in the final moments when everything seemed finalized. We are committed to the ceasefire. He's a diplomatic correspondent. And Shael Ben Ephraim says Israel was not updated until the ceasefire is on the verge of being signed. They were not part of the agreement process. It shows a serious and justified lack of trust that Israel would try to sabotage the talks. But they are, and they still are. They still obviously have the capacity to sabotage talks, because one element of the demands from the Iranian side, which make perfect sense, is to restrain Israel, is to ensure that Israel doesn't strike Lebanon any longer and immediately retreats from southern Lebanon, which it currently occupies. America has the capabilities of restraining Israel. It just chooses not to do so, which, of course, gives Israel the opportunity to continue sullying these affairs.
The original 10-point proposal had the acceptance of enrichment in Farsi, in the Farsi version. But then, for some unknown reason, that phrase was missing in the English version that was shared by the Iranian diplomats to journalists. The second thing that is of concern, or biggest concern, is Iran wants control of the Strait of Hormuz. They never had control of the Strait. It's dangerous because they border the Strait, but they didn't have control, and now they want it.
No, this is incorrect. They always had the capacity to control it. They just never applied it. Now they do apply that control, and therefore they de facto have control over the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? If you operate on might is right, or might makes right politics, you can't turn around and cry foul when someone else is demonstrating that. Right? John Favreau says, end U.S. aid to Israel. I told Kneecap that we're going to reschedule. So we're going to reschedule the talks with Kneecap. So the Delta CEO won't commit to lowering ticket prices if the jet fuel prices go down. When asked if his company would lower prices if fuel costs drop, he said instead that lower fuel costs would certainly help us boost our margins this year and certainly into next year as well. Great. So now you know that once a baseline price has been established, capital owners, especially due to market consolidation, and we saw this during COVID as well, in the aftermath of like the peak of COVID, they don't actually drop the prices again, right? And they have the capacity not to drop the prices because there's tremendous market consolidation, and therefore there's tremendous price leadership that takes place. And here we are. I mean, this is literally exactly what happened. This is what we talk about when we say greedflation. This is precisely what's going on. You know, there might be market forces that that lead to inflation, but that inflation continues because once a new baseline price has been established, why would you ever go back? It doesn't matter because they don't matter, but it's wild to watch Democrats do the food here is terrible and the portions are so small routine with the ceasefire. Why even bother? Go back to tweeting about rogue streamers. Shouldn't we criticize Trump for losing the war? Yeah, sure. But can we maybe wait until the ink on the ceasefire is dry so that our demented president doesn't decide to scrap the whole thing? Can we hold off like one whole day before we start goading this fucking psychopath? Is right. You have to think like, what if you're going to oppose Donald Trump? You have to oppose him adequately. You have to oppose the principles of the reasons as to why he had to go into this battle, wage this unjustifiable war. You can't, on the one hand, say, well, you know, we agree with the fucking we agree with the goals that have been stated. We just don't agree with the methods. It's very stupid. And also, Democrats haven't been vocal at all up until this moment anyway. And it's ironic that the only reason why they could be vocal is because they thought, oh, ceasefire established. Now we can start shitting on Trump. Now we can actually hang this around his neck, even though this was something that we also wanted. We would never act on it, or maybe we would if we were goaded into it. Who knows? But now now it's win-win. You accomplish Israel's goals that you were also invested in, and you get to hang it around Trump's neck because it's, very unpopular. However, because the ceasefire fucking collapsed because of Israel's lack of interest in maintaining the ceasefire, now they're in this unique predicament. Now they're in this unique predicament where they oppose it at a time when opposing it means something again, right? They thought they were opposing the war when it's meaningless, when it's over. Turns out now they're opposing the war when it is meaningful. They trapped themselves in this situation, but, make no mistake. Democrats love retreating, and they will retreat on this as well, most likely. At least most of them will, right? IRGC Major General Mohsen Rezai says Iran will stand with all of our might alongside Hezbollah, and that violations of the ceasefire will be met with punishments against Israel and America. Military official already saying that the ceasefire has collapsed. Here we are.
They not only want control of the strait, they want to also be paid at least $2 million per vessel that passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and then split that money with the government of Oman. And Israeli officials say that money will be used to funnel back into the IRGC weapons program to try and rebuild many of the production lines that were destroyed by the United States and Israel throughout the course of this war. And so the bottom line here is that this isn't over. It is a 2-week ceasefire. And the question remains if the Iranians will be willing to make a good faith deal that addresses all of these issues. But when you look at that 10-point proposal by the Iranians, there are a variety of issues that simply aren't going to happen. Not only red lines for the United States, but for the entire world. There's no scenario in which the U.S. military is going to withdraw completely from the Middle East. There are a variety of bases where U.S. soldiers remain. And if that were to take place, it would give the Iranians the ability and flexibility to rebuild their military and nuclear programs and then pose a threat to U.S. forces if they ever return to the region and allies across the Middle East. And so there are a lot of very serious questions here. The positive in all of this is that there are no missiles soaring through the skies of Israel, at least at this moment. But there are serious questions about the future of this agreement and if the Iranians have changed their tune at the negotiations.
Not to put too fine a point on it, and at the risk of sounding anti-Semitic, gagged, it's becoming increasingly obvious that when push comes to shove and the choice is directly between American interests and the Israeli interests at odds with each other, a shit ton of sitting American politicians will choose the Israeli interest. Yeah, it is in some ways because Israeli interests are technically also aligned with like the military-industrial complex and numerous other capital forces as well. And that's why I said what matters in this circumstance most is pressure from capital owners against Donald Trump because there's too much market volatility, too much instability, and it gets to a point where they can't make money, right? But as long as the oil and gas industry is doing all right, especially now that they're like refining heavy Venezuelan crude, as long as the markets are not too on fire, as long as inflation doesn't completely get out of control, then there's a lot of opportunity to make money. There's a lot of opportunity to make money here, so they don't actually apply the pressure necessary to force Donald Trump to finally bring this to a close.
Negotiating table and if this is going to actually hold.
All right, great reporting down there, Trey.
Thanks, Trey.
Glad you don't have to wear a helmet today or worry about the missiles. Hopefully this will hold at least for 2 weeks. Thank you, Trey.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube?
Look at that.
Let's get now.
Trump speaks to Sky News hours before announcing the ceasefire. This is again from yesterday, from last night.
The thoughts and the words of our U.S. correspondent Mark Stone, who has spoken to President Donald J. Trump. Mark, great to have you with us. What did the president have to say?
Well, he's upbeat. I spoke to him between the two posts that you referenced there. The first post came about an hour and a half before his self-imposed deadline. That was 8 p.m., the deadline, Eastern time. Remember, that was a point at which 24 hours earlier, he had said if Iran didn't meet his demands, he would effectively, I'm paraphrasing, all hell would break loose in Iran. He'd bomb the power plants. He'd bomb the bridges. It was extraordinary language we heard from the president. But an hour and a half before that, as you have outlined, he decided that he would accept this 10-point plan and accept this 2-week delay. After that, we called him. I called him, and he picked up. He doesn't always, but he did this time. And it was only a short call. These calls are very often very short, about a minute and a half. He said, I haven't got long. Be quick, he said. And so I asked him, how he was feeling with this ceasefire in place. It's great, he said. It's very good. He then went on to say that he believes that we've done everything we wanted to do militarily. He described it to me as a complete victory, a victory in military terms. And then he said, actually, in every other sense as well, a complete victory. That is how he is framing this war, which has lasted for just over a month. Now, I put it to him, and I think this is really important. As you outlined there, what appears to have happened is the president has accepted an Iranian position, which is 10 points. They're outlined in this document here, the National Security Council.
Great reporting, sir. Thank you. That's really good seasoning on this. I like that everyone is just like trying to farm this as like direct access to Donald Trump, but no one actually has. In a minute and a half, you're not going to have any opportunity anyway. But like, there's no like new reporting taking place here, right? I guess the only funny thing that we could look at is the fact that he actually refused to take a phone call from JD Vance when he was on stage, in Hungary, and he's still picking up the phone when random British journalists are calling him from unknown numbers.
Supreme National Security Council statement that came out overnight via Iranian media. And in these 10 points, this is really important, there are maximalist Iranian demands, like all American troops out of the Middle East, not just those that have come for the war, but all of them. Like that Iran should control the Strait of Hormuz, something they didn't do before this war. Now they get to do that as part of this proposal, and also the removal of all sanctions. A few other things as well. These are absolute maximalist Iranian demands. They are something the Americans could never accept. And yet Donald Trump is saying that now they form the viable basis for a negotiation that he thinks could last just 2 weeks. So I put it to him, how is this? How are these proposals anything like anything workable that America could agree to? And he said to me, you don't know what the points are. You don't know what they are. I do know what they are. He then went on to say they're very good points, and that most of them, this is intriguing, most of them have been fully negotiated already. So he is disputing the Iranian position, suggesting that the negotiations are already well developed. Remember, we didn't even know they were directly negotiating. Now he's saying, claiming that they are well developed, and that they are not the maximalist demands that Iran is claiming in their side of the statement. So something doesn't quite add up here. He then said, if it isn't good, we'll go right back to it very easily. I assume by that he's meaning we'll go right back to the fighting. Then he said, I've got to go now, and he ended the call. So it wasn't fulsome, but it was certainly added a lot, I think, to what has been kind of a dizzying night.
Extraordinary that you got to speak to him on such an important night, Mark. Tell us a bit more about his mood. What did you make of his demeanour?
Well, as I say, he was upbeat. And you know what's very interesting? This is the first time we've had his number for a little while. A lot of journalists, I think this is kind of worth pointing out, because it's odd, it's unusual. There are not many world leaders who A, allow their phone number to be out and about, and B, will just pick up to people. But Trump's not any world leader. And his number over the course of a few months has circulated among journalists here in Washington, D.C. We've had it for a little while. We've tried to call a few times. He hasn't answered. And tonight,
Okay, I don't care about this. Jesus Christ.
Chief Washington correspondent.
Ceasefire
Jonathan.
analysis, unanswered questions ahead. Have you tried calling him? No, I have not. The 30-year-old Hormuzer hasn't talked to high command in weeks, fires one drone every 3 days, destroys the world economy. Greatest joy is smell of burning HFO. Charges toll, doesn't let you through. Doesn't even know who's running the country anymore, doesn't care. I'm gonna Hormuz. True. 30-year-old Hormuzer, IRGC Navy General, IRGC Navy Admiral going nutty mode, just constantly lobbing missiles and constantly lobbing drones. I have his phone number. He's Hormuzing, dude. He's fucking Hormuzing.
Happy that there's a
Would you call him? No, I haven't. I haven't found like the perfect opportunity to try and call him. Can you ask Zoran for his number? Dog, I already have his phone number. I have his phone number. Why are you guys saying get his phone number? I have Donald Trump's phone number. I know what it is. Yes, of course I have his phone number. You lying? No, I'm not. I'm not fucking lying. One of these days when I have something important to address, I'll do it. No, get Trump's phone number from Zoran. Buddy, I already have his phone number. What the fuck's wrong with you guys? Oh my God. I know for a fact what his phone number is. Sign him up to Catfax? Okay, you guys are so stupid.
Carl, John, we just heard Ian say there are a lot of blank spaces in this agreement. You just spoke with the president. He's trying to fill some of them in.
Yeah, and look, but first, this is the most stunning reversal that I think we have ever seen in American politics. In about 10 hours, the president goes from threatening the annihilation of Iranian civilization to saying he's got an agreement that will bring about a golden age of peace in the Middle East. But look, the threat not only activated the Iranians to do something, it more importantly got the Pakistanis and the Chinese to in turn pressure the Iranians to agree to do something that they weren't willing to do before. But massive questions ahead. This is classic Trump negotiating technique. The question is, can you get from this deal that he's now done to something lasting, and will the deal sustain itself?
And Rebecca pointed out, so much of this is about the Straits of Hormuz and whether or not Iran is going to be in control, the United States is going to be in control, who's going to pay, whether it's really going to be open.
Yeah, look, this is the big question, and I did speak to the president just a short while ago. First of all, he believes that his threat is the only thing that made this happen. I asked him, are you going to be willing to allow the Iranians to charge a toll? They're talking about a $2 million for ship toll through the Strait of Hormuz. And he said to me, well, maybe it will be a joint venture. Maybe it'll be a U.S.-Iranian toll. And
yeah, that maybe is a load-bearing maybe. Doing a lot of work there, okay? Doing a lot of work. Maybe we'll both collect the toll. Who knows? I mean, who knows? Who knows who will collect tolls? What is a toll anyway? Spiritually speaking, philosophically speaking, what's a toll? The real toll we all pay is the slog of life, day-to-day existence, the banality of evil we must overcome, slowly but surely chipping away at our conscience. That's right. Toll! Ayatollah! The real toll is the loss of friends like Jeffrey Epstein. Very good guy, very big. Very big in the New York scene. I love that man. I miss him every day.
Each get a piece of it. I also asked him about something else that you heard Ian mention that the Iranians are saying, which is they maintain their right to enrich uranium. And he was adamant on this point. He said there will be no enrichment.
But that was in the 10-point plan that he said is the framework.
Yeah.
Well,
ask not who pays the toll, but for whom the bell tolls. That's the kind of energy we're bringing. That's right. I love tariffs. It's like Iran is doing tariffs. They told me, Mr. President, you love tariffs. We're doing tariffs too. I said to myself, that's a good time. I love doing tariffs, and now Iran can do it too, except the Supreme Court was very bad to me. They took my tariffs away.
Said is a starting point for negotiation, is a starting point. He says that it won't be in the final deal, but we'll see. These are huge questions. I mean, basically that 10 points is what the Iranians were saying before the war started.
That's true. They were demanding that. Well, no, before the war started, they weren't demanding those 10 points. They were actually infinitely more conciliatory on like the enriched uranium side of things, actually. But now that the war started, and they very clearly have an upper hand, they very clearly have a lot more leverage, especially considering that America is the side that's been begging for a ceasefire, and Iran is the side that said no publicly, openly, consistently, and continued to bomb the GCC and Israel. For the time being, I think the continuation of this is going to benefit Iran, but we shall see.
So we'll see if they're going to be
negotiations begin on Friday. John Carl, thanks very much.
It's been just hours since President Trump announced a 2-week ceasefire with Iran, but this morning that temporary truce is looking fragile at best. Moments ago, an Iranian news agency...
It's so funny because I watched this live in real time, and basically 30 minutes after this Dana Fash package where she talks about serious news, she ended her broadcast with like a 10-minute panel. Schumer is still defending the war? Oh, hell yeah.
The bottom line is...
Great messaging, guys. Love that. This is great messaging. Keep it up, guys. No, definitely. Oh, Trump fucked it up. We would have done it better. How is this the situation? I mean, it's not wrong, right? It's not wrong that Trump did fuck this up. Okay? But if you don't end it on this was unnecessary across the board and that we have to reconsider our relationship with Israel and we have to reconsider the way we treat our foreign adversaries, if you don't end it on that note and talk about the importance of the diplomatic approach and tie it back to Barack Obama's successful JCPOA initiative, which Chuck Schumer opposed, so he's not going to fucking do that. This is nothing, okay? I'm giving free game out here for the Democrats who want to cut away from the rest of the party and effectively communicate, okay? The diplomatic approach is the only time America has actually achieved any of its strategic interests in reducing Iran's nuclear capabilities. It's so fucking stupid.
That Iran still has its nuclear stockpile, its nuclear ambitions. Iran still has its nuclear stockpile. Its nuclear ambitions are still unchecked, if not accelerated. And finally, American credibility. The nations of the world are furious at Trump. The Europeans, the Asians, even the Middle Eastern allies. They say, what the hell is he doing? And the United States' diplomatic position and credibility in the world is dramatically worse because of this war. So just in summary, this war has made us worse off today than before it started. The war made us worse in terms of control of the Strait of Hormuz. The war made us worse in terms of the strength of the Iranian regime. The war made us worse in terms of high gas prices. The war made us worse because Iran's nuclear ambitions have been unchecked. And the war made us worse because American credibility is down the drain.
Yes, all of this is true. But how are you any different than Donald Trump? Simply because you weren't responsible for it doesn't change the reality that you're not actually opposing the reasons as to why Donald Trump engaged in this action. Okay? This is the problem. This is the problem with the Democratic Party's comms on this. Failing to distinguish how they have a different approach than Trump. They come across like they agree with the goals, just not the methods that have failed. They should always tie this back to the illegality and immorality of engaging in this unjust and costly war against Iran to begin with, reinforce demands to restrain Israel, which brought us into this war, and talk about the only time we achieved success with Iran's enrichment process, Obama's JCPOA, through diplomacy, which Schumer opposed at the time. Of course, Fox News is about to run a story on you. Buddy, this is the 8th story that they've run on me today. Okay? They're spending every damn day talking about this. You wish you had a fraction of Charles Ellis Schumer's sexual energy, you fool. Quit yapping and take some much needed notes from his sexual prowess. Hold on. Democrats are, of course, once again, failing to differentiate, they come across like they agree with the goals, just not the methods of Trump that have now openly failed. You're on Fox 5 right now. They've now demonstrably failed. They should always tie this back. Dems should always tie this back to illegality and immorality. Tie this back to the illegality and immorality of engaging in this unjust and costly war against Iran to begin with. Reinforce demands to restrain Israel. Oh, wait, I'm on Fox 5? Oh, that's different, actually. Hold up. I will watch that. It's my favorite news program on Fox News. Never mind. That's actually pretty tight. I didn't understand. When you said Fox 5, I thought you meant like a local Fox affiliate or something.
Wow. Progressive Democrat, Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed inviting Hassan Piker to a rally yesterday, refusing to condemn any of Piker's pathetic beliefs.
Are there any views that Hassan holds that you would disavow?
I'm not here to disavow people's views. This whole gotcha game, platform policing, cancel culture, I thought we were over it.
So, Dana, I think what gets my goat, since we're talking about Hassan Piker,
wait,
here's
what?
the
What does
party
that mean?
decries toxic masculinity.
Is he trying to say I'm a goat fucker because my name is
denies
Hassan?
the rapes on
Nice.
October 7th, which is basically just a horrible thing to say. Anybody who knows about October 7th knows what happened there. And he's a scumbag. How can the Democrat Party coddle that?
I think it's almost worse than that because he doesn't just deny it. He says it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? It doesn't matter. That's just the cost of war. Too bad, ladies. The things he said about women are pretty incredible. But we've gone over this before. Like, we make fun of sexism because it's like a way to like deal with it. It's like, it's funny. I can laugh about how women are bad drivers. Haha. But like, I actually am not great. And yet you have all the stories we've talked about in terms of the victims of illegal immigrant crime. 98% of them are women. You don't hear anything from anybody about that. Remember the lady who said, well, she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sorry, ladies. I mean,
I like that the game of telephone is like swapped at this point to be like Hassan participated in October 7 and committed sexual assaults. Like it's basically, we're like 1 week away from them saying I did October 7.
Trying to win a primary. They think that's where they have to be. There are a lot of people that listen to those shows and they listen to shows on the far right. But remember the kind of hell that President Trump had to pay for having dinner with Nick Fuentes.
Yeah.
And that's caused a huge fracturing on the right. And now all of them are fighting amongst each other and I can't even figure it out.
I don't follow the far right crazies because I am one. No, but I don't know what, but I'm pretty sure they don't say rape doesn't matter or rapes of Jewish women on October 7th. I don't know.
Wait, what? Are they? They're saying.
How can I mean, CNN had this guy on. Crazy.
Well, yeah, it's not. You have to watch the full tape of it. He's saying what Dana was saying, which he thinks that Israel's response is not proportionate to what was done to Israelis.
He has no right to say that.
Right. Then you should just not like him. And a lot of people don't like him.
But you do?
But no, it's not really a like or don't like thing. I think
he's handsome. Is that it?
He's objectively handsome. Look at the New York Times profile of him. I mean, he is.
Of course,
my queen.
My queen. I'm gonna take a hard pass on it.
No. But the reason that there's a profile of him, which includes a lot of the incendiary things that he said, is that he does have this big audience. And I think that the fight within my party about whether to go on Hassan Piker's stream or have him campaign for you is about dealing with the issues from the 2024 election. How we talk about Israel and the Democratic Party's relationship to it. How we talk about corruption and anti-establishment sentiment. How we talk about universal health care, housing, education. These are issues that he talks about a lot in these streams. And he has millions of people, a lot of young men who are voicing real concerns about how they can get ahead in society, not what they think about some woman who fled communist something.
Yeah, just something that happened to some chick in a communist country, Jesse. How is this not toxic masculinity? You know, the people that often call you a toxic masculine source are embracing this guy.
They are. Well, who cares? The thing about this is I kind of liked his answer to it. He goes, I don't think we want to get into platform policing and cancel culture. I agree with that. So if this guy wants to run and win, he thinks this guy could help him win, give it a shot. Give it a shot in Michigan. You know what? Right. I respect it. Own it.
What?
This could cost you huge, but if,
what is
if that's
going
how
on?
you really feel, do it. I really don't care. We had Ward Churchill. Remember him? Ward Churchill. America deserved 9/11. Now, I didn't think any politician would be inviting Ward Churchill to a rally and be like, I stand with the guy. But things have changed. People say all kinds of stuff now. And
oh, my God.
We just have to say, this is some crazy guy, but I like him. He might be too crazy for you. He might be obnoxious and disgusting, but you know what? I'm going to run with this guy. And if I win, I win. If I lose, it might be a little bit his fault. And it's your fault for the bad judgment. It's all about judgment.
Spoken like.
Wait, I think Jesse literally believes that I'm a misogynist, so he's now offering respect.
I'm going to go to you about 9/11 because you were there. And when you hear this, I mean, you do get a free punch out of it, don't you?
Do you think Jesse Waters is like, he's like, yeah, I like the guy because he's like, I believe he's misogynistic now.
Let's recognize the currents that are blowing through this, okay? This is where a lot of the young people are, and let's recognize what it is, okay? He is doing the stuff that we talked about in the 8 Block. He's using blame Israel as the panacea for every ill in the world. It is Israel's fault, period, end of story. That's
horrible.
What is embedded in this.
That's a
period.
terrible way to respond to this.
He's Turkish. But that becomes the be-all and end-all excuse for anything he wants to say. And so as a result of 7 October, he can say America owned 9/11, deserved it, et cetera. And all I can say is thank you, Teachers Union, because he's got millions of young men who are following this thing, who know nothing about world history, who know nothing about American history, who have no idea how lucky they are to be here. And the current blowing through this is a marriage right now of Islamism, not Islam, Islamism, and the far left. They actually, there's a term for it. It's actually called the watermelon revolution.
I think
right?
Waters has the real take of someone who thinks you're a bad person and wants the Democrats to lose. Yeah.
And by the way, that's the same union that gave us the mullahs in Iran. If you look into it, those two were aligned in 1979. This is not unprecedented. And the commonality is America sucks. Let's recognize that.
It's a problem on the right and the left with the Israel issue. And there's new polling out from Pew. 60% of adults have an unfavorable view. You're ignoring what is going on in the fracturing of our relationship with Israel in general.
That's true.
You are.
No, hold on, but I didn't say anything about the right, and I don't like what's in Fuentes either. You know what I mean? But this idea that it all comes back to, you know what? I got to be elected wherever I run, and 9/11 was deserved because I don't like the Israelis.
All right, we got to go.
Wait, what? That has nothing to do with the Israelis. What the fuck is this guy talking about? Oh, great. They moved on to more important stuff. That's okay. I don't know what he is. I don't know what the fuck he was on, but it's very funny. It's very funny that these guys over and over again keep unironically boosting my profile, calling me hot in the fucking process. And some of them are tactically retreating. Like Jesse Waters, I think, is probably saying this because like it's good to associate campaigns with a dangerous guy like this because people will be repulsed by his worldview. But the irony, of course, is that when he says when the main takeaway and the main response is like, oh, this guy actually channels a lot of the voices of young people, it ends up failing, right? There's not really an argument they can make in this circumstance because they're Republicans. Like, Republicans can't make that argument at all, right? Stop simping for terrorists. No one cares about the opinions of third worlders. Got it, man. Thank you. So here's the problem. Here's the problem. If you're Fox News and you say my worldview is repulsive and Democrats should shy away from it, right? You look like a fucking hypocrite because you're trying to engage in petty cancel culture, and a lot of people that deploy it, right? A lot of people that deploy that kind of cancel culture against their ideological enemies, ironically enough, create this environment where like the normies in the middle, they get annoyed by it. They don't want to hear it, especially not right now, right? if you're a fucking normie and you're tuning into Fox News, if you're like an independent and you're tuning into Fox News, don't know what you're doing, but and you're trying to figure out like what the Republican agenda is in this moment where, you know, Donald Trump is like engaging in spectacular fuck ups that are leading to your gas prices going up at the pump. And you hear people constantly fucking harping on like, oh, this guy who's like anti-Israel is an anti-Semite. And you've heard it before for the past 2.5 years, right? Your takeaway from that is not going to be, wow, this guy is really bad and Democrats should really stay away from him. Your takeaway is going to be, why the fuck am I listening to this again? Like, who cares? Who cares who the fuck this guy is? Why are you whining? Like, you're Republicans. We know where your allegiances are. We know what values you represent. It just doesn't make any sense. What's frustrating about this is you're just a lolcow, dude. Yeah, I know. I'm totally. That's what's going on here, chatter. I like that the only way that you can frame whatever is happening in the universe is through like internet terminology such as lolcowing. It's a demonstration of your lack of intelligence. It makes no fucking sense, but if you had any fucking friends in the real world, you probably understand that that's an idiotic thing to say out loud. Anyway. You're a lolcow, dude. Now you've been on Fox News, so even my parents know you're a POS. That's what he said. People who say lolcow are fucking lolcows. Yeah, I know. Fox News has done, I think, 10 hits on me in the past 48 hours, if not more. They obviously, I think, overestimate my motion. I don't think I have this level of motion. CNN has also done this as well. They think that I have make it or break it status for campaigns. It's very clear that a lot of powerful interests in the country that have some control over both parties, that want to reinforce their level of influence over both parties, are looking at someone like myself and giving me unnecessary flattery. I am not a kingmaker. Okay? I'm not a kingmaker at all. What I am doing, however, is representing the resentment and the anger of the masses. The anger that you all feel that business as usual politics has not worked for you. That politicians do not represent your interests, but instead, politicians and the media class, for the most part, represent the interests of corporations. Everybody understands that. This is a bipartisan issue, okay? You have Republicans and Democrats and independents alike that look at mainstream media as oppositional to their needs. You have a lot of people in this country that look to politicians and say, these guys suck. They don't represent me at all. And when those unpopular figures are launching haymaker after haymaker, especially on an issue that is 90-10 in the Democratic Party's base, it's clear that these guys are willing to throw it all out there to the best of their ability to try to forcibly separate myself, my community, from campaigns by creating this panic, by basically creating this manufactured outrage. Okay? It's not going to work because at the end of the day, the frustrations are not going to go away, right? The frustrations are not going to go away. People are done. People are sick and tired of it. They want a Trump-style figure to also emerge from the Democratic Party, okay? And by that, I mean someone who can be a voice for the people. And Trump certainly was a voice for their resentment and manipulated a bunch of people and took their resentment, recognized it, said, you're right to be angry, and then redirected that anger to vulnerable populations, to marginalized groups, to undocumented immigrants, right? And if there was actually a force on the opposition party side that took the anger and the frustration that people feel and then redirected it to actual vectors of power towards people and corporations that control the levers of power in this country, the forces of capital, they would be unbelievably successful. Okay? I'm just one person. I'm one person that happens to be very popular only because I share that same exact resentment. I share that same exact anger. And my goal is to channel that frustration back to the real people that are responsible for why you have a hard time paying rent, for why your price at the pump is going up, for why no one is seemingly dealing with the inflation crisis, for why you can't actually own a home. You can't get a good job that's reliable with decent benefits. And why you can't do that in the wealthiest nation on earth. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. With or without me, if candidates also channeled that frustration, they would win. These people in media that are beholden to the same corporate interests that politicians are beholden to are trying to sever that tie because they see me as a singular force that is changing people's minds. To a certain degree, I'm capable of doing that. That much is clear. But I'm one person. I don't have that much of a profound reach, and I have no capabilities of hypnotizing people. People have come to their own conclusions on Israel from all of the violence that they've seen, from all the arrogance demonstrated by envoys of Israel, the demands to silence people who are opposing Israel in the United States of America. People have said, why should we be beholden to the interests of a foreign country that is only able to behave in this belligerent manner because of our tax dollars going to them? Okay? That's it. People have arrived at these conclusions on their own. Cat's out of the bag. Toothpaste is out of the tube. You cannot put it back in. So all of these attacks, they amount to nothing. People who hate me will feel emboldened in their hatred. They will use this as an opportunity to say, see, even Fox News hates them. See, look at these moderate Democrats that have spoken out against them. And people who like me are going to feel emboldened because now we're under attack. Okay? There's some people in the middle who will maybe slot themselves into, well, this guy's a bad guy. I believe the things that I'm seeing about him, and I hate him without actually looking for the necessary context or thinking critically about it. And a lot more people, I think, will come here, as they have done so, and search for their own answers. However, make no mistake, and I will keep reiterating this, this is not an attack against me. Okay? This is an attack against all of you. They cannot yell at every single person. They can't say, everyone shut the fuck up about Israel right now. But what they can do is take advantage of the existing treasure trove of clips out of context and bias framings that already exist out there in the ether to undermine, malign, and smear someone who is representative of your interests. Because they can't, if they were to come out and basically say, like, everyone that feels this way about Israel is an anti-Semite that needs to fucking be denaturalized and deported, well, that's a whole lot of Americans, right? So all they can do is just like figure out what kind of like effective targets, cut the head of the snake, if you will. Because at the end of the day, they can't attack the message. So they try to undermine the messenger. That's it. That's it. That's all this is. And I'm glad that there are smart enough politicians out there who actually are not playing ball with this, who unironically are showing this, showing their stances by saying, look, we're not playing these games any longer. Okay? We're not playing these games. It's ridiculous. I'm glad. I'm glad that at least I can bring some attention to certain candidates, right? And not only that, but also on top of that, I'm glad that they can use this as an opportunity to say they're bold. Okay? To say, no, we're not compromising. It's totally ridiculous. Because after all, no matter how vulgar I might be, no matter how vulgar and angry I could be presented, after all, I talk professionally for a living. There's, thousands, tens of thousands of hours of material that they can work with. No matter how vulgar I might seem, the issues that I'm raising and the values that I represent are actually the righteous values. They are actually on the right side of morality. They might be civil. My opposition, your opposition, might be civil in their language. They might be civil in their optics. But the things that they advance, the values that they ride for, the countries that they want to defend, they're doing a whole deal of monstrous, immoral bullshit. Okay? That's why I don't care when Cory Booker says, oh, I don't know Hassan. Don't want to go on his stream. Don't really know about him, but I got a boss call from a donor and had to speak out. Okay. But you have no issue hanging out with Yoav Gallant, taking photos with a war criminal, Yoav Gallant, taking photos with the other war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu. So I welcome your anger because it seems to me like you're not on the side of humanity anyway. You've already decided that you're in line with Israel. So thank you for making that distinction for us. Thank you for drawing a line of demarcation. Thank you for being united alongside the reactionary forces in this country in your opposition against someone like myself. That's it. They're united in their hatred of us, and we must welcome their hatred. Here is Fox News interviewing some people at the line from Michigan State University.
Lined up and packed into these rallies, and they ate up the anti-war, anti-capitalist, and anti-establishment messages from both Piker and El Sayed. Here's a bit of what some of those students told us.
I don't think it's too far left. I think the Democratic Party has gone so far right.
Democratic Party was also against Zoran campaigning with Hassan, and we see how that went.
I think that they're really just trying to shut down Abdul's race early because I don't think they want another Zoran, and I think that they see Hassan as a way to do that because of his, statements that are framed as controversial.
Boom. Hasanabi heads, you made me proud. You made me proud. Those are great quotes. Those are bars, baby. Let's go. I'm surprised the Fox banner didn't just say Dr. Jihad speaks on the destruction of the West. I think we have to be a little bit more bold, right? We have to be a little bit more bold. We have to demand that our politicians are more bold as well. They need to demonstrate conviction. They need to demonstrate courage. They need to demonstrate their morality, their moral compass. For far too long, politicians, especially on the Democratic Party side, have been so scared of doing so. And that, unfortunately for them, translates to inconsistent messaging. That, for them, translates to exactly what people feel about politicians in general, right? People have this idea that politicians are cowards. They're constantly telling people what they want to hear, what they perceive is what people want to hear. Everything is focus tested. Every message is perfectly framed to maximize output, to maximize the number of people that are not offended by it, right? And yet when you look at the politicians that are some of the most successful, some of the most popular politicians, you see that moral conviction. You see that stubbornness. You see someone being uncompromising in their values, right? Bernie Sanders, even Zoran Mamdani to a certain degree, right? And they are rewarded with love. They're showered with praise, okay? These are some of the more resilient forces in American politics. And it might take a while for people to start recognizing that these politicians were right, like Bernie was right. It might take a while for people who have voted against Bernie Sanders, who thought Bernie Sanders was a malignant force in Democratic Party politics because they ruined the chances of their favorite candidates, the establishment liberals, the centrists, the center-right figures. But eventually, defeat after defeat causes them to really reconsider, and that's what we're seeing in the base of the party right now, and that's precisely why people are attacking me, because in their minds they think I'm a singular force. I'm not. Okay? I'm not alone. I can stand on my values, I can stand on my convictions and continue doing what I'm doing because I'm not alone. That's it. Yeah. They might look like they're attacking me, but they're actually trying to attack you. I'm just in the way. Anyway, there's more to it. We'll look at some of the other ridiculous smears now. Here, we'll get into it. Let's take a look at some of the Fox News coverage. This is just from this morning.
Progressive Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed appearing with controversial streamer Hassan Piker at a Michigan State rally where he refused to reject his past comments.
Abdul, are there any views that Hassan holds that you disavow while you're with him right now?
I'm not here to disavow people's views. I'm here to have a conversation about how to get money out of politics, put money back in pockets, and pass Medicare for all. That's the conversation that folks are here to listen to. This whole gotcha game, platform policing, cancel culture, I thought we were over it.
Let's bring in New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor Miranda Devine. Okay, so he said that afternoon. But earlier, that same day, yesterday, this is what he said when I pushed him on it. Watch.
Of course, I oppose rape. Of course, I don't think 9/11 was justified. But because you appear with somebody doesn't mean you agree with them on everything. My question to you is, when did we start bending to cancel culture? When did we...
Wait, that's consistent. Like, okay, so he repeated the exact same things that he said later in the day that he said to you as well. Do words matter? This is very strange. He's saying the same things to you in that moment. It's exactly the same, as a matter of fact. I fear that the dumber we get, the more reliable this kind of smear campaigns happen to be. Because we see this on Twitter, right? In so many circumstances where someone will just be like, Hassan hates Vietnamese people or whatever. And then you look at the video and it's like me criticizing a MAGA right-winger who's utilizing their position, who's using their background, identity politics as a shield to demonstrate fascist politics, to demand violent policies that I oppose, right? And people don't even watch the fucking clip. They just literally read the description if they're fortunate enough to be literate, and they just go along with it. Like, no one actually looks at the context that's in the fucking smear any longer.
Start saying that cancel culture was okay, because clearly on your show you have a number of people who you don't agree with, including me. And I think it's important for all of us who want to win votes, who want to build America, to go and talk to anyone, anywhere.
So he didn't have any problem saying earlier in the day that he didn't agree with the comments. But when he's face to face with the man, he didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, it really is hilarious.
That is the New York Post columnist writing hit jobs on you. She's writing one story per day on you, and now they are interviewing her. They assigned her to cover you and everything you do. They assigned another reporter to cover you. You're anti-Asian now. That is crazy. Aren't Turkish people considered Asian? That was such a big stretch. Yeah, none of that stuff matters.
And I think that El Sayed is just an opportunistic politician. He knows that Democrats have a big problem attracting the sort of Gen Z and particularly male vote. And that's Hassan Piker's apparent audience. He spews his bile every day to an audience on this gaming platform. A whole bunch of young boys, I guess, in their parents' basement. playing games and listening to his expletives and abuse. It's really cartoonish abuse. He breaks every taboo. He says America deserved.
Yeah, the problem is you like that. You like that when it's your guy doing it, right? That's the issue. I mean, we know that to be the case. They love Trump. This is Fox News. That's exactly what Trump does. But when they see a Trumpian style figure demonstrating left populism, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is not appropriate, mate. How dare you? How dare you violate the norms and social taboos?
9/11, he condones the October 7 attacks on Israel.
And then they just make up a whole bunch of shit, but it's like it's impossible to fucking deal with the faucet, the barrage of misinfo.
You pointed all of that out very well. But it's not just El Sayed, it's also Rashida Tlaib, it's also Ro Khanna. Some pretty mainstream Democrats are quite happy to stand alongside him and sort of launder his rank abuse as being normal commentary. And
yeah, I mean, look, fair is fair. Okay, I'm a bully to bullies. Okay, I've never shied away from that. If your worldview is toxic, if you have repulsive ideals that you are committed to advancing, if you're a reactionary, if you're a neo-Nazi, if you want to develop a white nativist anti-immigrant agenda and push for it, I'm going to shit on you. I'm not going to be nice. It doesn't matter what your background is. What matters is what your values are. Okay? And I'm pretty open about that, but it's really funny that they try to unironically flip the script and try to do this woke shit. Okay? Because that's what this is, right? This is what they have complained about with respect to the Democrats, with respect to the liberals, over and over and over again. It's so funny. And while they're doing it, they're also leaning into the Islamophobia too. While they're doing it, they're like, well, he's doing it Muslim style. Have you guys noticed that he's doing it Muslim style? These are dangerous Islamic forces at play. You're being a fucking snowflake.
by doing that, they just lower the tone for everybody. And, you know, Amazon's obviously quite happy to have him on their platform. Twitch is an Amazon subsidiary. So no one's wanting to cancel him, but it just...
Why did you bring the platform that I'm on then? Why did you bring up the platform that I'm on then if you're not trying to cancel him? Now he's trying to cancel him. Oh, no. We're just using choice quotes that are clipped out of context to fucking make him seem like a bad guy who doesn't deserve a platform at all. He's calling it Piker Broadcasting Service, PBS, right? Or no? He's collecting dollar it is. He's collecting them in the form of subscriptions like Twitch Primes that are free or for $6 dues. He's saying support the Piker Broadcasting Service, PBS. He's saying for tomorrow's news today, he's saying thank you, Blonde Bob, for the 50 gifted subs. Or no, 50 gifted subs. EP Lee Pro, thank you for the 10 gifted. Crocodactyl, thank you for the 5. Tissitoid Run, thank you for the 5 gifted. Marat Space Laser with the 5. He's getting subscriptions. He's farming donos. Donors. Arnors. Fucking hell. Little Beast then. Gringo Suck. Sublime K. Loga Donut. Cap'n Spork. 20 gifted subs. Crikey. The subs keep rolling. The subbery dues. They keep rolling in. Ex-Arthur. Sebastian Licks. Bed Rake. Iron Boy. Superfist Dandy. Thank you. Thank you for the gifted subs. Ha. Shigella Girl. My Bourbon Pod. Mango Cake with another 50. Julia Palooza with a 5. Pegium. Okay, I'm done reading. All right. Yeah. It is funny that they just like they fucking complain about all this shit, and it's just like it doesn't, you know.
It calls into question
It's irrelevant.
what kind of people these Democrats are, these progressives are. But it worked for Mamdani. Bernie Sanders and AOC like appearing with Hassan Piker. But, you know, I think they ought to really look at his followers because on X recently, it's been exposed that he might have, you know, 1 million plus followers, but a huge percentage of them are unverified. I think only 1.5% are actually verified followers. And that's the pattern you see when there are bots.
That's exactly the opposite, by the way. No, it's not bots that are unverified followers, but I like that that's what they think. No, motherfucker, have you seen the state of blue checkmark replies? No one in my community is ever going to fucking pay, or most people in my community are not going to fucking be caught dead paying for Elon Musk's Nazi-ass platform. I tried to explain this to people. I was like, you know, I'm like on auto block lists, right? I've been blocked automatically by so many people because I have a blue check mark because I got grandfathered into it because I'm a power user. I'm a power user of Twitter.
Come in, they're paid, they boost someone's figures, and therefore their algorithm, which doesn't discern, rewards them. And so he is a fully, you know, constructed, imaginary person, sort of.
So why are you spending every waking moment covering me then? That is like, that also doesn't make sense. I agree. I'm some irrelevant person. You should leave me alone. You should stop talking about me. I agree with that entirely. So why the fuck are you on your 11th article on me? Why are you on Fox News talking about me, right?
Avatar of whoever it is that wants to, whether it's himself or anybody who wants to disrupt and sow chaos and discord in America would elevate this man and his rancid, toxic views to mainstream.
Yeah, and it just makes you wonder the people within the community that are also elevating this as well. I think there's this growing.
All right. One more.
Welcome back. Some Democrats are pumping up on a controversial live streamer, Hassan Piker's channel. If you don't know him, that's okay. Here's a little taste of who he is.
America deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it. It doesn't even matter. None of this justifies that Palestinians have a right to dignity, a right to emancipation, a right to live free lives, free from this occupation. Respect to Fox News. Respect to Fox News for showing the full context. Once again, makes it a lot more difficult for them to argue against, right? Because, you know, all of a sudden, not a bad take, but a good take. Doesn't matter if rapes happen on October 7. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much.
America deserved 9/11. You know, with statements like that on the record, you think Democrats might want to keep their distance. But no, they don't. Instead, many are cozying up to Hassan Piker, treating him and going on his platform like a campaign stop.
I'm 33 years old.
Yeah, we're the same age, which is crazy because I'm a loser and you're running for mayor of New York. That's wild.
I went to Japan recently and I got both of you guys gifts. This one's for you. This is a Palestinian movement in Japan.
This is your third time on the stream.
But the first time in your studio.
Yeah, the first time
ever.
Which is
all in like Christmas holiday spirit. I didn't know that. I didn't know you had the Christmas spirit.
So AOC, Bernie Sanders, Mamdani, and then at the end there you saw Ro Khanna, congressman, who today, after you heard, was on that stream for 3 different occasions, was asked about his association with Piker.
Why would you not dissociate yourself from Hassan Piker? Why?
Well, first of all, I have gone on every media podcast. I go on Theo Von. I've gone on Sean Ryan.
You're going to go on Alex Jones?
I would not go on Alex Jones, but Hassan
just
Piker.
as bad.
No, but Hassan Piker, I have criticized some of his statements. I have said that, of course, America didn't deserve 9/11 and that we were justified in attacking Al Qaeda.
like this is the other side of it though. Like they have to. This is why I say like you just be honest, man. Be honest. Like I'm not just as bad as Alex Jones. That's the whole point, right? Like that's because that's the other side of it where you come across like you're being a little shifty with it, and you look unprincipled because it's like it's ridiculous. This comparison is ridiculous. Like there is a reason why. People who wouldn't go on Alex Jones don't have an issue with going on my stream. And that's because I do the exact opposite of what Alex Jones does. You got to admit, some of the things you said are pretty controversial. Okay. Let's take one of the quotes that they're using, right? Sexual assault happening or not happening doesn't change the justification for the genocide that Israel is conducting, right? Do you think that's a controversial statement? No, it's not a controversial statement at all. But you can present it as a controversial statement if you rob it of its context. Even with America Deserved 9/11, if we're talking about blowback, I'm fairly certain that the overwhelming majority of Americans can comprehend the logic behind that, right? The point is, I'm talking for 10 hours a day. You can get me to appear as though I'm subscribing to some of the most dangerous ideas that I oppose on a daily basis, right? And they do that. They are doing that, right? Over and over and over again. Don't know about majority. I think most people understand that on its face, the reason why 9/11 happened, obviously it's unjustifiable. You know, civilians were slaughtered. I'm not in favor of that. Most people would not be in favor of that unless it's, you know, civilians overseas and brown people that are being slaughtered. But most people understand 9/11 happened because we fucked around all over the region. We set up these guys. We armed them. We trained them. It's true. We did it. I mean, it's part of the political game. Smear campaigns by politicians live their whole life trying to cover their past. Okay, but notice how you actually backtracked and then compared me to a politician. I'm not a politician. And I don't even think politicians have to do that any longer. We're living in a post-Trump universe. Okay, as long as you have your values, as long as you have your convictions, a lot of this stuff is just noise. We give it power. We give it power by paying attention to it, and we give it power by responding to it with fear. Right? That's it. You're still in politics game, though. They're going to throw this in your face your entire life. Yeah, I know. I don't care. Do you think you can tell reliably what a person represents or who a person is by those who choose to actively smear them, their ideological opponents who are very clearly trying to manufacture outrage? Or do you have the capacity to think critically and make up your own mind? Because we all know the real reason why you thought right. We all know the real reason. Oh, he's Asmongold chatter. We all know the real reason why people are doing this is because they oppose not just my worldview, but they also oppose your worldview too. Like they are fearful that there is a big movement of people who oppose Israel's influence on American politics, for example.
The only way to do it is to do it together.
It is my great honor to be standing alongside incredible candidates and incredible politicians like Abdullah.
We've got an opportunity to change the face of American politics, and we will not back down.
Dude, I saw a guy who doesn't like you, calls you a dog shark, defending you from CNN and mainstream media only help you, especially when it comes from both sides. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, someone said, well, now that you're eating all the downsides, why don't you run for office? I mean, you got a little taste of one day of campaigning and what that looks like. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I'm much more effective at like leaning into candidates that have the time and have the money and have the background to be able to engage in this. My impact would be limited to one singular race as opposed to 10 races, 20 races, maybe 100 races. You understand? That's what it is. It's virtually impossible for me to do 8 to 10 hours of news coverage on a daily basis, develop a community of like-minded individuals from all around the country, and then use that as a force to be reckoned with to prop up candidates that demonstrate our values, that are more responsive to our needs, than to hyper focus on one race and maybe even lose at the end of that, right? A totally different set of skills there.
In the wealthiest nation on earth, or whether you are in Detroit or Lansing or Ann Arbor or Pittsburgh or Philly, that we deserve clean air and clean water. Every single person here should be able to go to a doctor. We deserve to live in a country that says that we should have a home. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed not only understands we have a right to breathe clean air, he is going to move with the urgency that is needed.
We are strong when we are united.
When they tell us that we cannot stand up and abolish ICE, we don't back down. When they tell us that we cannot believe in a future that is bigger than the present we have, we don't back down.
Hell yeah. Am I propagandized? No. Is it 1,000 Michiganders that came out to see Summerlee and Abdul with Hassan Piker that are wrong? Yeah, exactly. The thing that I've also learned, though, in you know, all the years of withstanding these fucking smears that just like they keep unearthing over and over again and like trying to create panic around as though it's new, like they're reheating the same old fucking dusty nachos at this point, is there are always going to be people that lean into it. There are always going to be people that are invested in being duped, right? It's that simple. But what matters most is who you are, what you believe in, what you want to advance in this country. That's all it is at the end of the day. And then the rest is hoping that people have that capacity to be charitable, hoping that people have that capacity to think critically and dive deeper and try to understand like why people are attacking me, for example.
I have said that I do not agree with anti-Semitism, but there are a lot of people that Hassan Piker speaks to who are upset with the war in Gaza.
The idea that Democrats are going to expand their platform and therefore they should be open to appearing with people like Hassan Piker is on its face absurd. Of course, they wouldn't extend that same courtesy to Republicans to show up on far-right, politically incorrect.
Yeah, good thing you guys have always been, good thing you guys have always been really considerate of the Democratic wishes, dude. And you always do. That's so funny. Good thing that you guys don't actually align with far-right figures. Like, what do you mean? The entire party's fucking far-right. Randy Fine's in Congress. I mean, half of the people, the person that he literally has on, Chip Roy, says heinous shit, like incredibly racist shit in a brief moment. Here, let's watch.
Podcasts. But it's not just showing up on his platform. Democrats are standing on stage with Piker. One of them is Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed. This is the same candidate who didn't want to comment on Ayatollah Khamenei's death, saying some of his voters might be upset.
I also want to remind you guys that there are a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad today. So, like, I just don't want to comment on Khamenei at all. Like, I don't think it's worth even touching that.
Syed, by the way, also considers the United States to be under a regime.
I'm no apologist for any regime, including our own. And at the end of the day, the question is whether or not a leader focuses on his or her people. Clearly, the Ayatollah did not. And clearly, Donald Trump and this administration is not either.
Joining me now is Texas Congressman and currently running for Texas Attorney General. It is Chip Roy. Congressman, it's great to see you.
Good afternoon, Will.
Glad to have you here in Dallas. So after the 2024 election, I think one of the things that Democrats told themselves is we got to get out there. We got to be on more podcasts. And they're using that excuse to explain their association with people like Hassan Piker.
Well, look, I think what we're seeing with Piker is just an indication of where the Democratic Party is today, where they are currently. I will give at least a little credit to Haley Stevens, who seemed to at least partially distance herself. She's a colleague of mine. But, you know, El-Sayed, who you just talked about, was openly embracing it. And this is, I think, a pretty equal race. I mean, he's certainly polling somewhere around 30% and has a real shot at being, I think, the first Muslim United States senator. This is something we're seeing in the significant march of Islam across the United States.
Insanity. Okay? That's just complete insanity. This is the significant march of Islam across the United States. Imagine saying that about a Jewish candidate, being like, "Yep, this is the malignant force of Judaism in the United States." Like, you would obviously get fucking yelled at, you know? It's ridiculous. Double standard once again.
Something that's been concerning to me and a lot of my colleagues is we've created the Sharia Free America Caucus. My friend Keith Self, local congressman from Collin County, just north of here, dealing with Epic City. But also what we've been seeing, obviously, with Mamdani, who you just showed the clip where Mamdani is sitting there saddling up with Piker. There's no shame here in dealing with someone who literally just said that he wasn't going to be concerned about rapes after October 7th. I mean, what kind of a human being is that? Let's put aside the absurdity of saying that America deserved it on 9/11. He's literally justifying or ignoring rapes.
Remember when you said on election night in New York that you would kill yourself if you were proven liability to Mamdani? They're trying to make you one, so you do it. Don't listen to them because they're scared. Yeah, I'm not going to actually kill myself, dude. The fuck?
In a post-October 7th world, this is something that is fully out of touch with most Americans. But unfortunately, it's very indicative of the move of the Democratic Party towards this side and this radicalization and the March of Islam throughout America.
And not just, I feel like, on the March of Islam, but Hasan Piker represents something else. He is
the entire party that protected Jeffrey Epstein and the president's friendly, familiar relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is now trying to make it seem like I don't care about sexual assault. You are a Republican. The fuck are you talking about? You have no leg to stand on here. We know what your attitude is on this issue. Okay? Obviously, it's also bullshit. Okay. Hello. Obviously, it's bullshit, right? They're, chopping up what I was saying. What's up? The response to this is, do you not care about genocide? And the answer is yes, they don't, but they can't say that out loud. Well, some do, but most of them can't say that out loud anymore because it's become a repulsive position to maintain. It was already morally repugnant, but now the majority also finds it to be morally repugnant, so they just turn around and fucking lie about my position. You know? If they actually cared about sexual assault, they'd bring Israel to heel. Israel literally had so much public pressure from international forces that they had to actually prosecute 6 rapists in one of their concentration camps, Side Tayman. What happened afterwards? They had a January 6th that was pro-rape, objectively. They got those guys out. The Israeli government dropped the prosecution. Benjamin Netanyahu paraded the rapists and even apologized for the prosecution that they withstood, presented them as victims and then heroes. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, what do you mean? You can't do that if the Israeli government is saying, like, yeah, rape is actually a sport for our forces, perfectly valid. I mean, they had a Knesset meeting. They had an emergency Knesset meeting where one of the fucking ministers of the Knesset straight up said rape is justifiable against Palestinians. Like, the fuck are we talking about? Thank you, Cood Dude, for the 100 gifted subs.
Self-admitted revolutionary communist.
Yeah.
His vision
That's right.
is to have communism through revolutionary mechanisms here in America. And to your point, this is where they are now on the left. This is now where the American Democratic Party is. They are cozying up to a guy who's saying, let's go, communism through revolution.
Yeah, and this is the Red-Green Alliance, right? This is not new. This is something we've been seeing across the entire world.
The Red-Green Alliance, Islamo-communism.
We're seeing it in full display in Paris, full display in London. We have, a massive movement occurring. I just met with a very accomplished Indian American here in Dallas who was talking about their experience in India, their experience in the move of Islam and how that radicalization has hit India. And he was saying, look, we just don't want this to happen to America. So we came here to be free from that. And that Red-Green Alliance, the march of Marxism, combined with it, this is all well-funded. This is one of those things.
It is pretty funny that these guys have no method other than, like, repeating exactly what the Nazis said and did. But they just added the new seasoning, which is instead of saying it's Judeo-Bolshevism, they say it's Islamo-Bolshevism. Islamo-communism is the same exact shit.
That as Attorney General, I want to look at. Open up the books to these NGOs and nonprofits that are all getting funded to advance this radicalization throughout the state. This is something we have the power to do. It's something we should do. It's something.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, open up the books and you will find that I am funded entirely by my community, and that's it. I don't even take corporate sponsorships for the most part. You know, what are you going to find? You're going to find that, you know, I got tier 1 to tier 3 subscribers to the Piker Broadcasting Service, PBS, baby. That's it. Yeah, sheesh. I know he's an anti-Muslim racist, Chip Roy, but amazing to see him just say out loud, it's bad that we might have a Muslim U.S. senator. Imagine saying this about a Jewish politician or a black politician. The bigotry is off the charts in the GOP and regularly ignored by mainstream media. Yep. Meanwhile, you got liberal forces, right, that are supposed to stand against this from a purely partisan perspective, even. The Democrats and the liberal media organizations that are supposed to be attacking this stuff are leaning into it. They're leaning into it over and over again. It's fucking unbelievable. Yeah. This is a big reason behind the 3-week unhinged Hassan Piker smear discourse, who may be living through a major pivot point for U.S.-Israel relations after the Obama-Biden experiences with Bibi, Trump's Iran war, plus the cataclysmic shift in U.S. voter opinion. Democrats won't go back to the way things were. Israel critics are rising on the right, too. They know that this is happening, and they're trying to deflect and distract to performatively lash out, endeavoring in vain to reassert control and force the toothpaste back into the empty tube, but that's not how this works anymore. Can't wait for Big Yahoo to mention my streamer.
Something that I'm talking to Secretary Besson about, something that I'm talking to Todd Blanche about. There's a coordinated effort in Washington, and I'll bring that to Austin and work with them to try to root it out.
Our Vice President J.D. Vance today was in Hungary, and he gave a speech where he got a surprise call from the president. Watch.
And then the rest of this is just lame shit. More, the bottom line with Dagan McDowell and Brian Brenberg. Okay, that's fake. That's not real. We're skipping that one.
Damn, this guy's good.